You're tuning into the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 2554, Chapter 2554, Chapter 548 Corpse Collection Directory 5. Chapter 2554, Chapter 548 Corpse Collection Directory 5. After a while, it became 1,900. In less than half an hour, around 300 people died. Invincible said angrily, "Are we still unable to solve this problem? Do we have to wait until the river map reaches the upper level and slaughters the sun and moon?" The people who died were still under the sun and moon. When the river map reached the upper level, they would start slaughtering the sun and moon. Who could resist it? Even Invincible was on the 7th floor, so he might not know what was going on below. Many of Invincible's descendants were at the sun and moon realm. At this moment, they were all searching for treasures for their parents. This time, Invincible was really anxious. Someone also said angrily, "Is the Heaven Hunting Pavilion still unable to send a message? Let everyone run to the 7th floor. Tell the people on the 7th floor to stop fighting. If we don't get rid of he too, we won't be able to escape death in the end." When he too was alive, he was about to step into the 3rd level. Even if he died, he should have at least reached the 7th level of the Eternal Realm by now. How many of those in the 3rd level of the Eternal Realm can match up to him? On the Heaven Hunting Pavilion side, the scholar wasn't too worried. He calmly said, "If we really reach the 7th level, he too won't be able to win." Even the head of the Heaven Department had entered. That was an expert that was one step away from the 3rd level of the 3rd level. He was only thinking about why it was so difficult to transmit the news. In the beginning, the word "he too" was transmitted to him immediately. After thinking for a moment, he opened his mouth and said, "We can't transmit the news now. We need the White Jade Gate to shake before we can transmit the news. We also need to tell the people inside that only with the White Jade Gate shaking can we maintain contact." At this moment, many people reacted. The first time they sent the message, it was indeed the White Jade Gate that shook. When would they be able to shake again? Some people were helpless. They were worried about the shaking before, but now they couldn't wait any longer. Otherwise, they would really be killed by he Tuesday. It had only been 4 days. Half of the people had died, and many people's hearts were bleeding. Especially the gods and demons. This time, not many of the immortals had died, but too many gods and demons had died. Some of the invincible ones had gone crazy. All of his people had died. Damn it. He too, I'm not done with him. In the distance, Dao King sneered in his heart. Are you all anxious now? Are you all mad? He had calmed down now. 3 of his people were still alive. One was at the 7th level of the Sun-Moon realm, one was at the 9th level of the Sun-Moon realm, and one was his grandson, Dao Cheng, who hadn't died either. Out of the 13 spots, 10 were gone. It had been quite miserable before, but now, it was not bad. He had seen that some of the invincible subordinates of the gods and devils had all died. That was because these guys had probably only arranged for people below the Sun-Moon realm to enter. The killing continued, but the speed had slowed down. It was not that Suyu had stopped killing, but that many people had escaped through the 5th floor entrance. The 5th floor entrance. Only the mountain and sea realm could open the entrance. The experts of the mountain and sea realm risked their lives, but the 5th floor entrance wasn't that safe. It was quite dangerous, and the flames rose up. If one wasn't careful, they would be set ablaze. Even so, at this moment, a large number of people ignored the danger and forcefully opened the passage. Some of the weaker ones, under the protection of the experts, quickly entered the 5th floor. From afar, Suyu saw some people fighting for the right of passage. He couldn't care less about anything else. He also saw some humans and immortals running away first. Some others were leaving under the protection of the stronger ones. Soon, Suyu sent a voice transmission, "You stay here for a while." In the crowd, Huang Jio's eyes moved slightly. He looked back and saw Suyu in the distance. He cursed in his heart, pretending to be a ghost. This guy really killed an embryo. Out of 700 to 800 gods and demons, he had killed more than 200. Moreover, the casualties were still continuing. It was close to 300. Cursing was one thing, but the little hairy ball was still in her head. Huang Jio remained calm and fought with a fellow who was fighting for the passage. By the time Xia Huyo and the others turned around to look for her, she had already fought far away. Xia Huyo was just about to shout when he was slightly startled and thought of something. He quickly gritted his teeth and said, "Go, let her cover the rear." Everyone felt that the undead behind them were dangerous. He knew that there was no danger. Since that was the case, Huang Jio did not leave. It was probably because Suyu had something to say. Soon, the group of people left one after another. Qin Fong shouted, "Don't give up on anyone. I'll stay behind to cover the rear. Let her go. There's no reason for a woman to cover the rear." Xia Huyo and the others looked at him as if they were looking at a fool. This fellow, forget it. He was being kind, but what was the point of you covering the rear? Xia Huyo quickly shouted, "Let's go. You're a member of the Qin family. We still need you to lead the way for us. It's even more dangerous up there. We need your support. Hurry up and leave. Hundreds of people are waiting for." Qin Fong's face broke down. He gritted his teeth, roared angrily, and turned around to leave. "I'm leaving. I have to be responsible for more people." He roared, "Comrade, if you don't die, even if you're crippled, I'll marry you. My Qin family will support you for the rest of your life." In the distance, Huang Jio curled his lips. He was thinking too much about you. Qin family? You're such a stupid fellow. Who the hell would marry you? Gradually, the number of people dwindled. A large number of people left through the passage. They didn't dare to stay any longer and left in groups, heading toward the higher levels. How could they dare to stay any longer? Were they not afraid that the undead would attack again? After a while, Suyu killed some of the people who did not manage to leave in time. As for Huang Jio, he also killed a few people who were blocking his way. When the surroundings became quiet, Huang Jio asked, "What's the matter?" Suyu did not say much. He threw out a storage ring and said, "It's dangerous up there. You're fine. I'm afraid that Wulan and the others won't be able to hold on any longer. Here are some treasures. Pass them to them and let them consume them. There are treasures for the flesh and bones of the living dead. Let them get stronger as soon as possible. He too is really here. I don't know when he will come up." Huang Jio didn't say much. He casually checked the storage ring, and his eyes instantly froze. He looked at Suyu. This guy was really willing to give up. She had seen many treasures. She had wanted them before, but Suyu had not given her a chance. Just as she was thinking, Suyu said calmly, "Hairy Ball, keep an eye on her. Remember to hand her over. If you don't, I'll take your life. Also, don't be in a hurry to go to the 7th floor. Kong 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 might be on the 7th floor. If I'm not there, you might be tricked." These words were all said to Hairy Ball. Little Hairy Ball appeared on her head and said with some grievance, "Why don't you eat her? I want to be with you." Suyu burst into laughter. "All right, let's leave quickly. If we are late, others might discover something." After which, he turned to Huang Jio and said, "Lu Laosher might be on the 5th or 6th floor. I definitely haven't reached the 7th floor yet. If you meet her, remember to verify your bloodline." Huang Jio remained silent. Suyu didn't say anything else. He looked around and exhaled, "Let's go. I still need to stay here for a while." Huang Jio did not say anything. He quickly opened the tunnel and left from the fourth floor. At this moment, the fourth floor became quiet. However, the moment the tunnel was opened, many people died. Suyu estimated that more than half of them were dead. The ones who are alive are probably less than 2,000. At this moment, 110 golden patterns were about to appear on his book. Killing a few more would be enough. The phantoms on some of the pages were also much stronger. The celestial, demonic, and immortal races had all reached Sun Moon 2 Dan. These few pages were also much brighter. A single page had already reached the level of an Earth soldier, and it was even beginning to evolve. When it's perfected, perhaps the pages are all heaven soldiers, and the entire book is a divine weapon. Suyu couldn't help but inhale. He was thinking, if the previous Time Master had also forged a book, what level would it be? Was the Golden Book in his head the civilization of the previous Time Master? What does the Heaven Hunting List have to do with my Golden Book? When the Heaven Hunting List entered the Xingyu residence, the Golden Book shook. Suyu was thinking, is it the relationship between the book and the book? Did he get one of the pages, or countless pages? The Heaven Hunting List records the rankings, records the talents and strength of the experts of the myriad races. It does feel like a catalogue. Suyu did not have a catalogue, but at this moment, he had some thoughts. Perhaps, the previous Shiguang master had created a catalogue. The so-called ranking, collecting auras and capturing auras, was it just to make it easier for him to collect corpses? That's right, collect corpses. Suyu muttered in his heart. Since he had already reached the level of a Shiguang master, he could not be bothered to collect the corpses of ordinary people. Only the corpses of geniuses and experts were worthy of him collecting corpses. It was impossible for a Shiguang master to collect the corpses of every single person, right? How could he have so much free time? What genius ranking? It's just a list of corpses to be collected, right? At this moment, Suyu finally understood. That's right. If it was him, he might have forged this in the later stages of the game to increase its capabilities and collect the corpses by name. He wouldn't be as desperate as he was right now. Heaven hunting roll, ah. It's just a death list. Suyu pursed his lips. To think that I'm so proud to be number one. If it were in the past, there might have been a Time Master collecting corpses. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 2555, Chapter 2555, Chapter 549, Layer by Layer L. Chapter 2555, Chapter 549, Layer by Layer L. At this moment, Suyu finally understood some of the details of the Heaven Hunting Pavilion. The death list. The kind that was specifically targeted for killing. Ruthless. Suyu muttered under his breath. He's not talking about me, but the previous Shiguang master. Don't you think that the other party is awesome? He created a catalogue that covers the entire world, recording all the geniuses and powerhouses. I'm sleeping at home to pick up girls. When I see the updated catalogue, I'll go and harvest some. Of course, I probably don't harvest often either. Otherwise, others would have noticed it long ago. But, there's definitely not a lack of harvesting. Suyu was seriously suspecting that those who were on the list in the past would die if they didn't die during their time on the list. Creating chaos in the heavens. Is that the job of the Heaven Hunting Pavilion? Indeed, we have to create chaos. Otherwise, it would be hard to explain the deaths of so many geniuses. Heaven Hunting Pavilion. Suyu mumbled. This organization seemed to have always aimed to create chaos in the heavens. Was it the same in the ancient times? Suyu was actually wrong. In the ancient times, the Heaven Hunting Pavilion really did not specialize in creating chaos. The reason why it was like this now, was because the scholars needed it. And at this moment, in the outside world. As the people ran away, Suyu and he too had mostly killed, and the number of deaths had also stabilized. There was still half left. Almost 1,800 people. And on the heaven hunting list, many people's auras had disappeared again, and they had been killed. However, at this moment, in the heaven hunting pavilion, the scholars frowned slightly. So many people had died on the heaven hunting list, but this time, something was not right. He looked at the restless heaven hunting list in the void and frowned slightly. He muttered, "So many people have died. Why do I feel that nothing has changed?" The heaven hunting pavilion was the ancient heaven overseeing organization. It oversaw the world. In the ancient times, it was also known as the heaven overseeing pavilion. Of course, it was also known as the heaven hunting pavilion in private. For so many years, only he, the heaven overseeing marquis, knew that once someone on the list died, although it was not killed by the heaven hunting pavilion or the heaven hunting pavilion who collected the corpses, the heaven hunting list would receive a certain amount of feedback and some benefits, it would begin to repair itself. But this time, with so many experts on the roll dead, something was not right. The heaven hunting roll did not seem to have gained anything. Why? Is it because of the internal turmoil in the starry manor? Or is he too powerful? After killing those fellows, there was no aura leaking out. The scholar fell into deep thought. When a person died, their willpower and yuan qi would spread out and dissipate in the world. As for the heaven hunting roll, it covered the world. Anyone who entered the roll would be able to enter the heaven hunting roll after death. The scholar defined this as luck. Yes, luck. They were all geniuses, peerless geniuses. After death, their luck would dissipate. The scholar actually did not know what the heaven hunting roll absorbed, but it would indeed recover a little after a person died. He could only define it as luck. This kind of thing was more illusory. But now, many people had died on the list. In the past, geniuses would also die during their trips to the Starry Palace. There were still some recoveries on the heaven hunting list, but this time, there were none. Why? The scholar once again fell into deep thought. After a long while, his eyes suddenly moved and looked at the distant ancient city of Grand Star. Su Yu had forged a book. It had attracted the Parliament's blood calamity. Therefore, he felt that there was a problem with that book. In fact, Tian Gu and the rest also felt the same way. Book. Time book. The scholar furrowed his brows as he thought. In the ancient times, any weapon that was slightly stronger that was related to a book would make people involuntarily think of a time master. Therefore, his immediate superior had also privately discussed whether or not it was a time master. His superior was not a human emperor but an extremely powerful expert whose position in ancient times was second only to that of a human emperor. The heaven hunting roll was used by that person to monitor the world. The heaven hunting roll was not very similar to the book. It was just a roll. However, because it was too powerful, it had once attracted a round of private discussions. "Lord King Wen, is that you?" The scholar mumbled. He didn't know, he wasn't sure. In ancient times, the human emperor unified the heavens, he had two close friends by his side. Later on, when the heavens were unified, the human emperor conferred the title of king. King Wen was ranked first and King Wu was ranked second. King Wen and King Wu had high statuses, they were slightly higher than the half-emperors of the heavens. These two had unparalleled combat strength. There were even rumors that they were no weaker than the human emperor. King Wen kept a low profile, while King Wu was overbearing. King Wu had once said in private that King Wen was stronger than him, perhaps even stronger than the human emperor. Many thoughts appeared in the scholar's mind, but he quickly suppressed them. He couldn't help but think of that person's appearance. That mellow smile had never changed in its softness. However, thinking about it now, he felt a chill in his heart. Sigh. With a sigh, King Wen was dead. He had died a long time ago. No one knew how he died. Some said that there was a problem with his cultivation. Some said that he was a time master who had been killed by the representatives of the myriad races. Others said that it was the human emperor who had killed him because his contributions were too great. After his death, the path of civilization was considered to have ended. The tombstone was his tombstone. It was a tombstone forged by the human civilization master to commemorate him. Once King Wen died, all the civilizations in the heavens were cut off. At this moment, the scholar could not help but think about these and all of this. Once King Wen died, the chaos in the heavens quickly erupted. There was almost no interval between them. It could be that King Wen's death had triggered all of this. His status in the ancient times could only be said to be average. He did not know the specifics. He only knew that if King Wen was alive, perhaps the ancient times would not have ended. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 2556, Chapter 2556, Chapter 549 was pushed forward layer by layer 2. Chapter 2556, Chapter 549 was pushed forward layer by layer 2. King Wen was dead, the martial king was still the human emperor. One thought after another appeared in his mind. The scholar muttered, "Is it Su Yu? If it was him, did he receive the Lord's inheritance?" He shuddered. He did not dare to think about it. He was afraid of that person, very afraid. He was more afraid of that person than the martial king. He was always so gentle and indifferent to everything. It was as if there was nothing in the universe that could harm him. However, he died. He died without knowing why. The scholar looked at the heaven hunting list again. The heaven hunting list without its owner was actually much weaker than it was in the past. After it was shattered, it became much weaker. However, it had recovered a little over the years. He wasn't too sure why he couldn't absorb the fate brought by the fall of those geniuses today. He had been trying to refine this item for so many years, but he was unable to do so. Even if King Wen's item died, not everyone could take it away. Is a great change coming? Or will the 10th tide change bring about some unknown things? He looked at the old antiques outside. Recently, many old antiques had appeared. Presumably, they were the same as him, feeling as if dark clouds were covering the sun. Yes, he had been feeling this way for the past few days. It was a sign of the apocalypse. A sign that something big was going to happen. He had it, and maybe these guys had it too. They all felt danger, a threat to their lives. At their level, it was actually very difficult for them to fall. They were not in the antiquity age. The Tao fusing was already the limit of the universe, not the antiquity age. At their level, how many people could kill them? The two fellows of the Devouring God clan could not kill the Demon Emperor even if they joined hands. Not to mention that he was in the ancient Tao merge. As he thought of the two fellows of the Devouring God clan and Dobao. This guy actually had a deep relationship with King Wen. There was actually a younger one in his lineage. What did he discover by following Su Yu? All sorts of chaotic thoughts made his heart a little chaotic. The scholar stood with his hands behind his back in the tall building of the heaven hunting pavilion. He couldn't help but reveal a hint of melancholy. After living for countless years, was it time for the reckoning? He looked at the old antiques outside one after another. Some of the middle and low-level people of the past were now important figures who controlled the heavens and the 10,000 worlds. Now, who would be willing to let someone unify the heavens? Su Yu. Was there any hope for this person? If he really wanted to unify the heavens, he would first have to get past the old-timers. He too, who had undergone a title change, was now a dead spirit. Just as he was thinking, the white jade gate suddenly shook. The scholar was slightly startled. Outside, a shout had already sounded. "Send the message, quickly send the message. 4th floor. Su Yu was slightly disappointed that he didn't gain anything on the fourth floor. There was nothing good in his two lungs. It was just that the breathing technique had strengthened his acupuncture point slightly. Su Yu was unwilling to give up and wanted to find out if his heart was on this floor. The heart should be on the same floor as his lungs, right? However, after searching for a long time, he didn't find anything similar, which made Su Yu a little depressed. Did that mean that it was on the fifth floor? Or was it that he had been beaten up? With no other choice, Su Yu could only return to the entrance. He wasn't sure if this entrance was where the spinal aperture was, so he called out, "Mountain Tai," to try it out. After observing it for a while, he allowed old Zhou to roar. After a long time, he was certain that this wasn't the spinal aperture. If nothing went wrong, then this aperture would be on the fifth level. The sixth level should be where the 100 acupoints aperture was. With these thoughts in mind, while shouting, "Mountain Tai," Su Yu also sent out some extremely messy messages. "Save, the invasion of the undead, save me." He didn't say anything in detail and just sent out this sentence. Of course, this was only a talent hunter list, and Su Yu also sent out a few other messages. They were all very messy messages, as if it was too late to send out messages. Not long after, a line of words appeared on all the lists in Su Yu's hand, and the communication was instantly cut off. Go to the 7th level. Everyone on the 7th level, put down your prejudices and guard the 7th level. Kill he too. We'll contact you again when we're in shock. Yes, this was the only message sent from the outside world. Send everyone to the 7th level. Tell the experts on the 7th level to put down their prejudices temporarily and kill he too first. As for the rest, they had to wait for he too to die. Otherwise, with he too around, the losses would be unimaginable. 7th level. At this moment, the lotus flower in the sky was about to bloom. The first leaf of the 9-leafed sky lotus seemed to have already bloomed. If nothing went wrong, it would soon bloom. At this moment, many experts of the 7th level had received the news. At this moment, the head of the Sky Division held the Heaven Hunting Scroll and read it for a while. Then, he frowned slightly. He too. He knew he too, or rather, he had seen him once before. At the end of the first tide flow, he had only been a minor character, but he too was already a major character who had shaken the heavens. He too is here. The head of the Sky Division murmured. He looked at the 9-leafed heavenly lotus in the air and sighed inwardly. These were troubled times. He wanted to calm down and harvest the 9-leafed sky lotus to enter the Tao fusing realm. This was what he wanted. But now, there seemed to be some trouble. As expected, it wasn't so easy to enter the Tao fusing realm. Even now, he wasn't confident that the person who entered this time would be the strongest. However, would the strongest be able to obtain the treasure? If everything depended on one's strength, then there would be no such thing as luck. Look, trouble was coming. Once trouble came, there would be many variables. It wasn't just the river map that was in trouble. The 7th level actually had the undead passageway, but no one had touched it or provoked it. But in reality, it was only a matter of time, because the 9-leafed sky lotus was only a projection in the void. You're tuning into the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 2557, Chapter 2557, Chapter 549 was pushed forward layer by layer 3. Chapter 2557, Chapter 549 was pushed forward layer by layer 3. The real 9-leafed sky lotus was above the undead passageway, and the one that suppressed the undead passageway was the 9-leafed sky lotus. Once it was picked, it would definitely attract a large number of undead. Troublesome. The head of the Sky Division sighed again. At this moment, someone exclaimed from afar, he too. Something happened down there. The undead are coming from below. It was indeed unexpected. The people on the 7th floor really didn't know what had happened. Only now did they know that the undead sovereign had arrived. At this moment, in a corner of the 7th floor, a few invincible humans had gathered together. Qin Jin cursed, F***ck, why are they chasing me? Am I weak and easy to bully? This was strange. It had been 4 days since he came in. He had fought 8 times and fought 8 invincible opponents once. He was beaten badly. After cursing, seeing that no one was paying attention to him, Qin Jin said helplessly, Xia Longwu, have you seen the news? Something seems to have happened down there. What should we do? At this moment, the invincible opponents were a little silent. Very soon, Xia Longwu looked at Zhu Tianfang and said, Brother Zhu, what do you think? Before Zhu Tianfang could say anything, Qin Jin scolded, how do you call people? You have to call me uncle. I'm the same, I'm still lacking in seniority. Silence. Strictly speaking, the 4 unrivaled experts were indeed lacking in seniority compared to the others. Zhou Polong was the nephew of the great Zhou king, but Xia Longwu was the grandson of the great Xia king. Qin Zhen and Zhu Tianfang were both sons of the older generation. Xia Longwu's expression was calm. Brother Zhu, do you think we should think of a way to go down? Qin Zhen saw that he was ignoring him and felt helpless. He cursed in his heart. The younger generation is arrogant. However, in terms of strength, the 3 of them later attained Dao at the same time. Xia Longwu might really be the strongest. Forget it, I can't be bothered to teach him a lesson. Zhu Tianfang's strength was the strongest, and he was also an invincible veteran. He had fought against an invincible opponent 100 years ago, and at this moment. After a moment of silence, he said, even if we go down, we won't be a match for he too. I know that he too was 1 step away from attaining Dao in the past. Even if he died, after so many years and absorbing the aura of death to recover, he still has a level 7 eternity. On our side, it would be fine if the 4 of us joined forces to fight him, but if we were to fight him alone, even if I were to meet him, I would definitely not be a match for him. Level 7 of eternity. He could be considered an expert amongst the undefeatable. If the trash who attained Dao in a small realm could be considered level 1 of eternity, then those who attain Dao in this realm could be considered level 2. The myriad realms attain Dao in the heavens, and almost all those who attain Dao in one realm had the strength of level 3. At Zhu Tianfang's level, when he attained Dao, his strength would definitely be slightly weaker than the current Xia Longwu. However, more than 100 years had passed, and his strength had also entered the middle stage. In eternity, he could be considered to be at the middle stage. Among the dozens of unrivaled humans, he was also at the middle stage and was not in existence at the tail end of the pack. However, after meeting he too, this person's strength was almost on the same level as the Dao King and the white-haired godly king. Furthermore, when it came to the human race, he was probably on the same level as the great Han King. This was not something to be trifled with. The great Han King had fought several unrivaled humans that day, and some of them were at the middle stage. The battles were also extremely difficult. Among the humans, the great Qin King was at the 9th stage, the great Zhou King and the great Xia King were at the 8th stage, the great Ming King, the great Han King, the great Tang King, and the great Shang King were all at the 7th stage, and the rest were at the middle and early stages. For example, the Silkworm Exterminating King was at the middle stage. The outside world judged him to be at the 5th stage of eternity. As for the specifics, it would be difficult to tell unless it was a life and death battle. Hearing his words, Qin Jin said, so what? But right now, many little guys are down there. As Qin Jin spoke, he frowned and said, those little guys might not be able to reach the 7th level. The 5th level has a heart fire, and the 6th level has 9 twists and 18 levels. It's extremely difficult to reach the 7th level. If they can't reach it, won't they be dead for sure? Zhu Tianfang nodded slightly. So, we can only hope that some of the sun and moon below can bring them up. This time, many of the sun and moon from the various manors have come. Old Hu from the great Xia manors, Qin Hao from the great Qin manors, Old Ho from the great Ming manors, and many of the sun and moon from the other manors are on the 6th level. As he spoke, Zhu Tianfang continued, let's not talk about whether we can go down or not. If we go down together, it will be difficult to come up from the 7th level. Do you think that if we go down, those fellows will block the passage and attack us the moment we pop out? As soon as these words were said, Zhou Polong added, we can't go down. Otherwise, we can only go and kill he too ourselves. Otherwise, we won't be able to come up or go down. That would be the biggest problem. We can't go down. Don't look at how the people in the outside world told them to give up their prejudice. It was all nonsense. Once we went down, the entrance would be blocked. That would be the biggest problem. So, we have to go to the entrance now to prevent the human experts from coming up and being killed by them. Guarding the entrance is what we have to do. Leaving a safe passage for the human race. With the 4 invincible races, the other races didn't dare to act recklessly. Seeing that they all said so, Qin Zhen didn't say anything else. He just sighed and said, then let's do it. There was no other choice. On the Zhu family's side, Zhu Guangshan and the others were all down there. Xia Huyo of the Xia family and several juniors of the Zhou family were all down there. Since they all said so, there was nothing he could do. Indeed, going down might be a dead end. Very quickly, the few of them made a decision. They would first guard the passageway to prevent any human experts from being killed by the other invincible experts of the 10,000 clans. At this moment, on the 5th and 6th floors, large numbers of people began to gather their own experts and head towards the 7th floor. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 2558, Chapter 2558, Chapter 549, Advance Layer by Layer 4. Chapter 2558, Chapter 549, Advance Layer by Layer 4. As for treasure hunting, forget it. At this stage, they were still searching for treasures. The invincible undead was about to come up. On the 5th floor. The floating earth spirit had also gathered the experts of the 5 Elements clan. It was a little surprised. Undead? It wasn't Suyu. That can't be right. The floating earth spirit muttered in its heart. Was the person who killed the person an undead? He couldn't tell. Moreover, how could a dead spirit be so treacherous? I remember correctly. It was clearly an assassination, but the dead spirit had also learned how to sneak attack. But at this moment, he also heard the people on the 4th floor discussing after surviving the disaster. The dead spirit had come. It was very powerful. Suyu can transform into a dead spirit, right? The floating earth spirit continued to think. It seemed that he could. Could it be that everyone had been deceived by Suyu? It was possible. He was still suspicious of this point because few humans had died. Furthermore, what he saw was different from what he heard. Of course, the floating earth spirit couldn't be bothered to expose anything. If he did, that fellow would fly into a rage out of humiliation. What if he insisted on killing him? The floating earth spirit looked in all directions. At this moment, there were many people gathered on the 5th floor, but he didn't see Modwa and the others. It was possible that those lunatics had gone to the 6th or 7th floor. Other than these few people, the other people on the heaven roll did see some. Soon, he saw some humans. The floating earth spirit scanned the area and saw some humans with extraordinary identities. His eyes flickered. At this moment, Bai Feng and the others were also wrapped up by the large group as they fled towards the entrance of the 6th floor. Just as they whispered something, in the distance, an earthen yellow figure suddenly looked at them and shouted, "That guy, are you Su Yu's teacher?" Bai Feng frowned slightly and looked into the distance. Five Elements Clan. He took a glance and seemed to recognize the other party's identity. He said coldly, "Five Elements Clan's floating earth spirit. It's me." Bai Feng said coldly, "What, are you looking for trouble?" The floating earth spirit snorted. "Not interested. I hate humans, but my relationship with Su Yu is quite good. Your people seem to have their internal organs ignited by a heart flame. We need to treat them immediately." After saying that, a storage ring shot over. There are a few 5 elements fruits inside. They are all water elemental. After consuming them, the heart flame can be suppressed. When you get out, remember to ask Su Yu to return them to me. The surrounding experts were all stunned. On the 5 elements race's side, some of the geniuses also changed their colors. Someone sent a voice transmission and said angrily, "Floating earth spirit, what are you doing? Are you crazy? Su Yu is now the target of all the races in the universe. What are you saying?" A sun-moon expert beside him quickly said, "Don't misunderstand. The floating earth spirit has nothing to do with Su Yu. Su Yu once trapped him and almost killed him." Especially on the immortal side, this sun-moon hurriedly explained, "It's all a misunderstanding. The floating earth spirit was just joking. As for the floating earth spirit," he said in a serious tone, "there's no misunderstanding. I don't represent the 5 elements race. I'm only representing myself. I sparred with Su Yu. I lost to him. I submit to him. To me, what race, what enemy, what public enemy of 10,000 worlds aren't the key. You don't understand the world of geniuses. I dare say that when Mo Duo Na, Zhan Wushuang, and the others see Su Yu, they won't shout and fight. Their skills are inferior to others, so they have to submit." As he spoke, he looked at the various races and said coldly, "If you feel that it's inappropriate, feel free to attack me. Although the floating earth spirit is weak, it's really not afraid of you. I'm making a friend, why should I care about you guys?" Some people were extremely surprised. This fellow, had he gone mad? In front of so many people, he said that he wanted to make friends with Su Yu. He was courting death. On the immortal side, Sun and Moon said coldly, "Floating earth spirit, think about it yourself. Some things cannot be decided by a genius like you. This is an order from the immortal emperor and the emperors of the various races. Be careful that you don't say things out loud." If it wasn't for the fact that the timing wasn't right, he would have killed the floating earth spirit for saying this. The floating earth spirit didn't say anything and remained silent. However, he cursed silently in his heart. "What do you know? Let's talk after you get out of here alive. If they're all dead, how would they have the chance to find trouble with me?" He ignored them and looked towards Bai Feng. He transmitted his voice, "What are you looking at? I'm not giving you face. I'm giving Su Yu face. The thing is real. It won't poison you to death. I hate that Lu Hong of the human race the most. I don't care about anything else." Bai Feng was extremely surprised. When did Su Yu form such a deep friendship with the 5 Elements clan's floating earth spirit? In front of all the clans in the heavens, he brought them spirit fruits. Although they didn't really need them, and Huang Jiao came back with many treasures, but, the 5 Elements spirit fruits weren't trash. Bai Feng couldn't even afford one even if he sold it. At this moment, he glanced at his storage ring and saw that there were quite a few, there were 5 of them. This was a huge sum. He looked at the floating earth spirit in surprise. Although the other party's tone wasn't very good, it was normal. The floating earth spirit was a top-tier genius. Other than top-tier geniuses, everyone else was probably trash in his eyes. "Thank you." Bai Feng didn't say much, but he was thinking in his heart. Could it be that Su Yu trapped him last time and befriended him? That's right. Last time in the ancient city, Suyu killed a large number of suns and moons, but the floating earth spirit stayed in the ancient city for a month without doing anything. Perhaps they really had some friendship. He was not the only one. In fact, many people were thinking the same thing at this moment. There was even someone who said coldly, back then, Suyu pretended to be the floating earth spirit and challenged Tian Duo to a battle. After killing Tian Duo, he pretended to be Tian Duo. The Five Elements clan said that it was because the floating earth spirit was trapped and had been in the ancient house the whole time. They didn't receive any news about it, haha. Now it seems that Tian Duo died in vain. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 2559, Chapter 2559, Chapter 549, Advance Layer by Layer 5. Chapter 2559, Chapter 549, Advance Layer by Layer 5. Perhaps there was some connection between the floating earth spirit and Suyu. Or rather, it was just an act back then. Damn it. Kill. On the side of the Five Elements clan, several Sun-Moon experts looked at the floating earth spirit and shouted telepathically, B** starred, you're simply a B** starred. The few elders were a little resentful that they had failed to live up to their expectations. Even if they were really on good terms with Suyu, they couldn't show it. It was over. Even if they were to get out this time, even if the Five Elements clan did their best to protect the floating earth spirit would still be in a lot of trouble. They didn't mind the floating earth spirit befriending Suyu. It wasn't a big deal. When geniuses were outside, having more friends was more of a path. But for a public enemy like Suyu, even if they were to really befriend him, they had to do it secretly. This could easily drag the entire Five Elements clan down with you. The floating earth spirit didn't say anything and didn't explain. There was nothing to explain. There were only so many people present. The humans weren't counted. No matter what the humans said, the myriad clans in the heavens wouldn't believe them. As for the Five Elements clan, there was no need to worry about them. As for the other clans, they were all dead. Naturally, no one would spread the news. If it wasn't Suyu who came down, then he would think of a way to trap and kill them. It wouldn't be a big deal. The elders were truly cowardly. These fellows had obtained quite a lot of treasures this time. If they were to trap and kill them, they might even obtain a great harvest. In any case, so many people had already died. Even if more died, no one would suspect anything. He didn't care about this, and he didn't intentionally try to get close to Baifeng. Intentionally? That was too obvious. He was trying to curry favor with Baifeng. There was no need for that. Just this kind of arrogance and faint feeling. However, in front of the myriad clans in the heavens, I said that I was Suyu's friend. If it was really Suyu who did this, would he have the face to lay his hands on me? I gave away my treasure and saved your friends. I didn't know that you had come in, so I showed my sincerity. Under the myriad clan's covetous eyes and the furious attitude of the Five Elements clan, the floating earth spirit was calm and composed. Very quickly, it took the lead and flew toward the sixth floor's passageway. As for what treasure land it was, he didn't want to think about it now. There was no need to think about it. This time, as long as everyone could survive, it was enough. Surviving was the only way. The group of geniuses and experts started to flee like refugees. Even if the human race was nearby, no one made a move this time. The human race still had over 300 people. How long would it take for them to exterminate the human race? Moreover, there were some races that didn't have the mood to fight here. On the third floor, there were more undead behind He too. At this moment, He too stood at the entrance of the third floor. He frowned slightly and said strangely, "Idiot, have you been scolding me?" He too remained silent. "Did you scold me?" He too wasn't sure. This dummy rarely spoke. The key point was that at this moment, he felt that countless people were talking about him. The key point was that it was actually very difficult for ordinary people to make him feel this way. This meant that the person who scolded him was actually quite strong. The powerful resentment was almost able to pierce through the long river of time and space. The last time someone remembered him so much, if he remembered correctly, it was when he was still alive. All the worlds in the universe were scolding him and leading the undead to invade. Why was it this time? He too was a little confused and annoyed. He said, "Forget it, let's not think about it. Let's go to the 4th floor. Maybe some guys ran away. Did they spread the news of my arrival?" He wasn't sure. Could it be that he didn't kill all of them before and let them run to the top by accident? So, they all knew that I was here. It wasn't that serious, was it? Even if they knew that the undead had descended, they wouldn't know who exactly it was. "I didn't tell them my name, right?" He said uncertainly. "Idiot, did I say that I was he too?" "No. I don't know." He too hesitated. "Did I say that?" No, he didn't remember. He only remembered that I had laughed for a long time. He shook his head. He too didn't want to think about it anymore. He didn't care anymore. Go up. It was good that he knew. The people on top knew, but the people on the outside didn't know. Anyway, they would meet sooner or later. Soon, he too led his army of undead through the passage and entered the 4th floor. The 4th floor was extremely quiet at this moment. It was silent. He too was a little confused. Did the news really leak out? Was it because I didn't seal it well enough? Continue to search, inch by inch. Don't let a single living person leave. Forget it, I'll sweep up layer by layer. I won't let a single one go. There were actually some people on the 4th floor, but very few. Some people were searching for treasures and might not even know about the news. Some people found the treasure land and explored it alone, not caring about the outside world. These were the things he too wanted to kill. Suyu only killed those he met, and he too killed many people. He too searched inch by inch, not letting any of them go. He killed his way up from the 1st floor, leaving no one alive. In this way, he made a time difference for Suyu. It was a big place after all, so it would take a lot of time to search. On the other side of the 4th floor, Suyu silently recorded the scene of the undead army invading again. Soon, he quietly escaped and entered the 5th floor. He too was really good. He did a good job as a handyman. Suyu could feel that the aura of the undead was even more intense there. Keep up the good work. Sweep slowly. Don't be in a hurry to get up. Suyu muttered in his heart. You came up too quickly. I'm running out of time. There were definitely many treasures waiting for him on the 4th floor. Unfortunately, he didn't have much time to explore. He too's speed of sweeping was faster. It might have something to do with the increase in the number of undead under him. The 5th level, the spinal orifice's points are definitely here. This time, I'll have to spend a little more time. Once Suyu entered the 5th level, he allowed the heart flame to burn him. The moment he entered, he knew that there might really be a heart on this level. This was not important. What was important was that he had to find out how the spinal orifice's points operated. Very soon, he would be able to completely deduce the cultivation method. Once the cultivation method was out, he would be able to quickly think of a way to enter the 9th level of Lingyun and complete the metamorphosis time and time again. He would no longer need to be stuck in the realm. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 2560, Chapter 2560, Chapter 550 The Manifestation of the Universe. L. Chapter 2560, Chapter 550 The Manifestation of the Universe. L. The fifth floor, heart fire burning. Su Yu couldn't be bothered with the treasure. There weren't many people on the fourth floor. Perhaps he too would come up soon. At this moment, there weren't many people on the fifth floor. Those who received the news ran away. Those who didn't receive the news were either from small clans or lone travelers. There were very few people. He went to look for the spinal orifices. It should be on this level. The next level was almost to the buttocks. Where did the spinal orifices come from? Su Yu went straight to the edge of this realm. Along the way, he saw some treasures. If he took them out, they could be exchanged for money. However, Su Yu did not care too much. At his level, they were not at the level of carrying objects, Su Yu really did not think much of them. They were too rich. There was nothing he could do. As he ran, Su Yu was also in a hurry. He too had come too quickly. Otherwise, Su Yu would have prepared to slowly search for treasures layer by layer. Now, he didn't dare to go to many places for fear of wasting time. Only when he too reached the seventh level and had opponents would he be able to stop and take a short rest. The news should have spread. There might be people guarding the seventh floor, so we must blend in with the crowd before everyone leaves. We can't kill anymore. If we kill again, there are too few people. It will be more obvious if I blend in. At this moment, Su Yu didn't kill many people. He wasn't in a hurry to kill his way to the sixth floor. Besides, there must be some high-level existences on the sixth floor. It was too difficult to kill them. There was no hurry. It had only been open for a month, and it hadn't even been 5 days yet. Su Yu made a judgment along the way, and soon, he found a place. That was where the boundary barrier was. Su Yu looked around. This wasn't a passage, but a mountain that was as tall as a ridge and directly penetrated the sky. A spine. Su Yu muttered in his heart. He quickly flew up and slapped the ridge, but it didn't budge at all. It was so sturdy that it was unimaginable. Perhaps if I were to pierce through it, I would be able to leave Xingyu Manor. All right then. Giving up on this idea, it was true that old Zhou's physical body was slightly stronger. The master who forged the weapon might have added other things as well. The Xingyu Manor that he forged might be even stronger than old Zhou's original physical body. If he wanted to break through it, he wouldn't be able to do so even if he was invincible. No, he might not even be able to achieve the third level of the They emerge. Where is the spinal aperture? Su Yu searched around and located it. He searched according to the proportion of his body. He wouldn't shout too much about Mountain Tai for no reason. Old Zhou felt like he was going to go crazy from anger. If he shouted too much, who knew if he would explode? What if he exploded? Even though a dead person might not be able to self-destruct. Su Yu located it along the way. Soon, he locked onto a spot in the void in front of the mountain ridge. Su Yu circulated his spinal aperture. Sure enough, there was a faint sensation in the void, but it didn't appear. This was the place. It seemed that at the critical moment, he still had to stimulate old Zhou. Mountain Tai. Su Yu shouted in a low voice, boom. The fifth level indeed shook, and in his mind, old Zhou's roar was somewhat hysterical. I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill you. I'm definitely going to kill you. Who are you? You're not Mountain Tai. Who are you? Su Yu. At this moment, Su Yu felt a chill in his heart, and his scalp went numb. At this moment, he felt as if the will of the world was staring at him. You're not Mount Tai. Where did you hide Mount Tai? Hand over Mount Tai. That voice was incomparably crazy, and it kept roaring, assaulting Su Yu's mind. However, Su Yu's heart was incomparably shocked. How could this be? He was already dead. Why was this happening? Why did he determine that he was not Tai Shan? Old Zhou should only be a remnant of his thoughts. Could a remnant of his thoughts still think? He did not care much. He quickly looked at the hole that had just appeared. At this moment, the vortex was spinning rapidly. In his mind, old Zhou's voice became even crazier. You're not Taishan. You're not. Where did you hide him? Who are you? Who the hell are you? What's your relationship with Taishan? Su Yu's hair stood on end. F***ck, you even know this kind of deductive theory, and you can even deduce that I'm related to Taishan. Is this really a remnant thought, or is the person actually not dead, and there are still some signs of life, just a chaotic will? Remnant thought, it shouldn't be able to ask me what my relationship with Taishan is, right? Su Yu was terrified and did not dare to ask. He gritted his teeth and blood seeped out from his teeth. He stared at the vortex without blinking. He wanted to get the cultivation technique out. As for the rest, he did not care. He had to stop shouting Taishan's words. If he continued shouting, he was afraid that old Zhou might really come back to life. As he shouted more, old Zhou seemed to become smarter. Was he dead or not dead? Su Yu shuddered. Could it be that old Zhou was not actually dead? On the basis of a living person, he had forged old Zhou into a starry mansion and turned him into a weapon? So, the starry mansion could still continue to operate? The more Su Yu thought about it, the more horrified he became. If this thing was alive, if it was released, it could pierce through the world. Even if it was injured, even if it was crippled, would it be able to reach the Unity realm? It's fucking horrible. Staring at the vortex for a long time, the trembling stopped. Su Yu grasped it, he was about to close the orifices, ears. Suddenly there was a less violent murmur. You are not Taishan, you are not. Taishan is not so weak, not so weak. Su Yu quickly closed the orifices, isolated the sound, half kneeling on the ground, all his cold sweat. He came to a conclusion with some difficulty. Old Zhou was not dead. He is not dead, he is just disabled. He is sealed, he is not dead. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 2561, Chapter 2561, Chapter 550, The Law of the Universe. Asks for a subscription, 2. Chapter 2561, Chapter 550, The Law of the Universe. Asks for a subscription, 2. Su Yu's whole body was trembling. We are now in the body of one person, and this person is not dead. Mount Tai is like a spell. Open this guy's spell and unseal this guy's spell. F***ck. I seem to have done something bad. Su Yu swallowed his saliva. After a long while, he suddenly gritted his teeth and said, what's wrong with it? Now in the myriad realms, I am not the only one. The gods and demons are the most respected. If I really let him out. Humph. Su Yu's eyes flickered. If I really let him out, what does it have to do with me to disturb the heavens? The myriad races in the heavens still want to kill me. If it really became chaotic, that would be a good thing. With this thought, the fear from before instantly dissipated by 70%. Su Yu stood up and wiped the sweat on his forehead. At this moment, he vaguely knew that old Zhou might really not be dead yet. Perhaps there was still a chance of survival. Su Yu's eyes flickered. He did not say any more nonsense and began to try to activate his acupuncture points. This time, he did not call out for Taishan anymore. He opened all his acupuncture points. The chaotic murmurs still rang in his ears. Why did you kill me? This was similar to before. When he did not call out for Taishan, old Zhou's emotions were still stable. Once he did, it was like a curse that made old Zhou violent and violent. If he continued shouting, Su Yu was worried that he would really wake him up. What a scary guy. Su Yu silently chanted in his heart. Very soon, he tried to circulate one acupuncture point after another. Blood continuously flowed out of his mouth. He casually ate a lotus root and continued to try. One acupuncture point after another was lit up. 330,340. More and more. The acupuncture point between his eyebrows and the acupuncture point between his spine were all pierced through. All the way to the 350 apertures. With a bang, Suyu couldn't care less about the pain. He looked around and quickly swallowed the lotus root to repair the part that had exploded. F***ck. Suyu cursed in his heart. Fortunately, no one saw it. However, it was fortunate that the sky-connecting aperture had exploded. If the forehead and spine apertures had exploded, it would have been dangerous. The sky-connecting aperture wasn't too dangerous, but the place where it exploded wasn't very elegant. This was also the reason why Suyu dared to try. However, it was obvious that he had failed in his attempt. Actually, there were only the last 10 acupuncture points. If he really tried, perhaps he would be able to get them out after a few hundred tries. No matter how the 10 acupuncture points operated, there was a pattern to them. If the 10 acupuncture points were arranged in different ways, then there would be countless of them. However, if there was a pattern among them, then it would be much less. Perhaps, after a few hundred explosions, I will be able to learn it on my own. Suyu cursed in his heart. He rubbed the part that had just exploded and was now recovering. It was too unsightly. It did not match the temperament of a civilized master. If this was seen by others, it would be impossible for them to live. Civilized masters all needed their face. Of course, they also needed the face below. It's better to look for the sky-connecting aperture first. If I can't find it, or if I don't have the time, I will try to deduce it myself. At this moment, Suyu missed the past. He missed a person, Zhou Hao. Zhou Hao was also a genius. The key was that this fellow definitely didn't open 360 apertures. Now, those who didn't open 360 apertures weren't qualified to be Suyu's test subjects. If he did, he could still be a test subject. The key was that he couldn't open 360 apertures just because he knew where 360 apertures were. Suyu did not know how many apertures Zhou Hao had opened. Maybe he had opened 200. Sigh. He did not even have a test subject. It was embarrassing for a big shot like him to do such a thing himself. If the sky-connecting aperture is on the 7th floor, I might not even have the chance to go up. Even if I go up, I might not have the chance to get close to it. It's invincible up there. Doesn't that mean I still have to experiment on it myself? With these thoughts in mind, Suyu quickly flew toward the entrance of the 5th and 6th levels. As he flew, he couldn't help but want to try it out. Maybe he was right all of a sudden. Bang! The sound of explosions rang out again. Suyu looked around and quickly took a bite of a lotus root. It was delicious. It was really delicious. He used it to ease the awkwardness. I took a few hundred lotus roots. I deduced that a few hundred times would be enough to deduce the correct operating method. At this moment, Suyu's expression suddenly changed. Is this fate for me to deduce it myself? Moreover, I kept calling out to old Zhou. What if I managed to bring him back to life? A few hundred lotus roots, a holy healing medicine. Where can I find a cure? No, no, no. It's not that. It's all a coincidence. This was not fate. Suyu looked around once again. He checked and locked on. He was afraid that someone would see him. He could not afford to lose face. Even if he was not Suyu now, even if he had a wolf's head, he could not do it. However, if he mastered the circulation method of the heavenly cycle acupoint in advance, he could complete the 9 transformations ahead of time. Otherwise, if he took the treasure and went to the 9 transformations, he would not have the time. Why don't try it? Suyu asked himself. Try it, no one saw it. If they saw it, then he would kill them to silence them. With this thought in mind, Suyu tried another method of operation. With a bang, his flesh and blood were mangled. He quickly ate the lotus root. His clothes were fine, but Suyu's clothes still had a set of Earth Soldier level underwear inside. He wasn't afraid of that. Next time, he would change to a Heavenly Soldier level. At this moment, Suyu was indeed eager to quickly master the cultivation technique. This was his obsession with the cultivation technique and his dedication to the path of cultivation. Suyu consoled himself. I'm sacrificing myself for a great cause. I'm sacrificing myself for the lost heavenly cycle technique of the myriad worlds. Great researchers never care about these things. Even if it's sh*t, when necessary, for the sake of research, they can have a taste. You're tuning into the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 2562, Chapter 2562, Chapter 550, The Law of the Universe, 3. Chapter 2562, Chapter 550, The Law of the Universe, 3. Suyu hypnotized himself. At this moment, he felt like a saint. Such compassion for the world. Such compassion for the world. He was even moved by himself. When a person, for the sake of a great cause, for the sake of perfecting a cultivation technique that had been lost for 100,000 years, sacrificed himself and himself, what a great sentiment. Yes, he had made such a choice precisely for the sake of restoring the cultivation technique. It was for the sake of the inheritance of the heaven civilization. At this moment, in the sea of will that had not moved for a long time, a divine text slowly took shape. Saint. Yes, saint, saint, for the sake of the world, for the sake of love, he sacrificed everything. At this moment, the power of light appeared on Suyu's body. Light radiated from his body. It was as if a saint had descended to the human world to influence the world. As expected. This is my true heart. Suyu muttered. The path of a saint was the embodiment of my true heart. Everything I did was for everyone, for the path. A divine text was formed just like that. Innate divine text, innate tier 2. This was Suyu's 29th divine text. Saint. When Suyu controlled this divine text and sensed its characteristics, he was a little speechless. There were no special characteristics, no offensive power, no lethality, but affinity. Yes, when he used this divine text, the others would feel very warm and very reliable, thinking that Suyu was the world's warmest man. This was an auxiliary divine text, innate divine text. It increased affinity. As for Suyu, his gaze changed and he suddenly smiled. His smile was exceptionally bright. Yes, as a civilized master, he actually needed a divine text like this. Yes, this thing didn't seem to be of much use. But this could increase the trust of others. The original enemy might be able to be influenced. If he couldn't be influenced, then he could just physically cross over. The path of a saint, offering one's butt. Suyu chuckled. He no longer felt that there was anything unacceptable about this exploding butt. It was still all right. My talent was indeed astonishing. I was able to outline a divine text with just a casual touch. Very good. It was the 29th divine text. Perhaps the 30th divine text would be out very soon. After continuously traveling through space, coupled with the explosion of the beast-shaped divine text, Suyu actually felt that he had quite a deep understanding of space recently. Furthermore, his civilization also had a large amount of space, he had even cut through space himself. After many times, Suyu felt that he might soon be able to comprehend an innate space divine text. As he circulated his cultivation technique, he ate lotus roots to repair it while swallowing some treasures to strengthen the divine text he had just outlined. Sacred Tao divine text. He wanted others to think that he was his father the moment they saw him. If that was the case, who would attack him? Not to mention, if this divine text was truly cultivated to the extreme, it would still be very terrifying. Perhaps everyone would call him Father when they saw him. Su Yu chuckled. He could already imagine the scene at that moment. The moment I appeared, I had a smile on my face. The moment these old fogies from the ancient times saw me, they all cried bitterly and knelt down to call me Father, saying that I was wrong. TSK. This was quite a formidable divine text. No wonder it was an inborn divine text. He didn't have many inborn divine texts, but every one of them had their own unique uses. For example, the fire of inheritance, the divine text with the word calamity, the word civilization, and the divine text with the word holy. Of course, he once again overlooked an inconspicuous divine text. That wasn't an inborn divine text. It was just an unintentional outline. Su Yu, who had a smile on his face, ate the lotus root, and his back kept exploding, turning into a bloody mess. This scene was too strange. Anyone who saw it would probably think that they had seen a ghost or a madman. As for Su Yu, how could he care about this? The key was that there was no one around him. Just as he was thinking, a figure appeared in a cave. He looked at Su Yu with a strange expression. Clearly, this person had just come out to explore the treasure. He saw Su Yu with a wolf's head, and they seemed to be of the same race, so he wanted to greet him. Just as he was thinking, his head fell off. The book appeared and the wolf fell into the book. Su Yu still had a smile on his face as he lamented, "You saw something you shouldn't have seen." Yes, the words of the villain. From his mouth, it was as if it should be like this. The wolf had seen something he shouldn't have seen and must die. Su Yu continued to adjust his cultivation method. Gradually, he got used to the explosions. The explosions didn't have much of an impact on him, and he didn't need to use the toilet. This method isn't right. If I, Su Yu, were to impart the heaven revolving technique to others, I will definitely not impart the heaven revolving technique to anyone. I swear. As Su Yu thought of this, he gritted his teeth and smiled. Definitely. Absolutely. Not only that, if I were to discover that anyone dared to impart the heaven revolving technique to anyone, I wouldn't let them off. No one. That was how domineering it was. Even if an ancient expert were to be resurrected and taught to the outside world, they wouldn't be allowed to teach anyone how to operate the heavenly aperture. In any case, no one would die. Even if they didn't have any treasures to recover, they would still be alive and kicking after cultivating for a few months. For those who could open the heavenly aperture, they might not even need a few months to recover. However, as a cultivator, how could they cultivate to a higher level of power if they didn't deeply experience this feeling? If I can set the rules, if I don't impart the heaven-connecting aperture technique, it will be the rules. Su Yu gritted his teeth. This was too detestable. I'm too miserable. Normally, no matter how bitter, tiring, or painful the cultivation method was, I wouldn't object. The key point was that he really hated this aperture. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 2563, Chapter 2563, Chapter 550 of the Heavenly Cycle appeared. 4. Chapter 2563, Chapter 550 of the Heavenly Cycle appeared. 4. 77 types, 77 explosions. Su Yu muttered and continued to change his method. At this moment, he had already reached the entrance of the 6th floor. He did not continue to go up, but he did not go to search for treasures either. This was because the God text of calamity was faintly pulsating. He did not know when the river map would come up. The heavenly cycle should follow the general trend. I won't encounter any disasters, right? Su Yu pondered in his heart. When he had learned the 5 elements divine art in the past, he had encountered a lightning tribulation. After that, he had also encountered a disaster when forging weapons. So, it couldn't be that he had cultivated the heavenly cycle technique, right? Would the blood tribulation of the parliament appear? Could it be that the ancient parliament still dared not to let anyone cultivate the heavenly cycle technique? That's impossible. Those who cultivate are the descendants or disciples of important figures. It's not like they're the kind of people that everyone wants to beat up like a time master. I feel that the parliament wouldn't dare to. Or perhaps, the members of the parliament would be cultivating on their own. With such a conclusion, Suyu felt much more at ease. It's still all right. There's no lightning tribulation. It's best if it's quieter. 92 types. Suyu continued to eat his lotus root and burped. His breath was filled with a sweet fragrance. The injuries from the explosion continued to recover, and he would be able to repair them very quickly. My luck isn't too good. Suyu thought to himself as he continued to make adjustments. At this moment, he could already connect 356 apertures. However, once it was connected to the heaven connecting aperture, it would still be easy for it to explode. He was unable to completely connect these apertures. There were only a few left, so why was it still not possible? As Suyu thought to himself, light and shadow appeared in front of him. He quickly connected them to the light and shadow apertures that he projected. With his naked eyes, he could see that the cultivation technique had a sense of beauty. At a glance, if it did not have such a sense of beauty, it meant that the cultivation technique was not very good. At this moment, he took a closer look, frowned slightly, and began to make some adjustments. At this moment, Suyu had almost forgotten the existence of he too. In the end, he still liked to do this kind of deduction. Although it was based on the foundation of others, when he completed his deduction, Suyu was still very happy. Up until now, the cultivation technique he was most proud of was the dual Wu acupoint fusion technique. This was because he had derived it bit by bit on his own. After combining several techniques and locating 36 acupoints, he had discovered the pattern. Finally, he conducted step-by-step derivation and researched this acupoint fusion technique. The second was the 5 elements divine art. This was also what he and old Zhao had derived by slowly combining those techniques and fusing 5 techniques into one. At this moment, Suyu was focused on deducing the heavenly cycle technique, and he was quite interested. He had almost forgotten that he was in the extremely dangerous starry manor. That was until, a blind guy shouted from afar, "Get out of my way. I want to go up to the 6th level. Get out of my way." With a bang, the illusory map in front of him shattered. Suyu frowned, reached out, and slapped the mountain and sea into pieces. Damn it, how can a mountain and sea be so arrogant? Suyu cursed in his heart, feeling somewhat annoyed. After slapping this annoying shrimp to death, only then did he realize that a long time had passed, and the river map was probably about to come up. The calamity divine text was jumping a little too much. He frowned slightly. The calamity divine text was jumping a lot more than before. Was it dangerous? Then let's retreat. This time, there will be no recording. Suyu quickly disappeared on the spot. He had just disappeared not long ago. This time, he too came up quickly. He didn't smile, but kept a low profile. He flashed for a while and pierced through the void. Not long after, he arrived at the entrance to the 6th floor. This time, he wanted to personally seal the entrance. He didn't know if he was foolishly letting some people go on purpose, but he felt that he might have been exposed. Therefore, he personally sealed off the entrance this time. When he reached the entrance, he smelled a little bit of blood. He also felt a bit of blood in the air. He frowned slightly and reached out with his hand. Soon, a drop of blood gathered. Just died? He too muttered, feeling a bit regretful. It was still a mountain and sea. It would have been better if he had arrived earlier. He had caused me to lose a mountain and sea subordinate. He wasn't in a hurry to go up to the 6th floor. He first searched the 5th floor. The blood swirled in his hand for a while. Whoever killed his subordinate, he would have to teach them a lesson later. He pinched the blood and it shattered. Soon, an image appeared. In his field of vision, it seemed to be a wolf meditating. He too didn't pay much attention at first, but suddenly, he seemed to see something. His eyes moved slightly, and he zoomed in to take a closer look. Upon closer inspection, it seemed as if there was a layer of stars in front of the wolf. He too was stunned for a moment, but when he took a closer look, he suddenly frowned. He couldn't see clearly, but he could see the vision of the guy who was killed. He couldn't see clearly, only a rough star map. However, he too felt that it looked familiar. He muttered, "Heavenly cycle method, which family's heavenly cycle method?" He looked at the map carefully, and after looking at it for a while, he muttered to himself, "No, it's not perfect, it's wrong. At least 3 apertures are in the wrong position." He looked at it carefully and fell into deep thought. Scenes that had been forgotten for many years appeared in his mind. That was when he was young, so long ago that he had long forgotten all of this. That year, he was cultivating. His father told him that in the ancient times, the most powerful cultivation technique was the heavenly cycle technique. And his ancestor was a human king in the ancient times. He held a high position and was highly regarded by the human emperor. To be able to inherit the art of heavenly cycles, his family had inherited it. From that day on, he had been painstakingly cultivating, gaining enlightenment, and continuing to gain enlightenment. Even when his peers had become mountains and seas, he was still gaining enlightenment. You're tuning into the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 2564, Chapter 2564, Chapter 550 The Heavenly Cycle Technique. Chapter 2564, Chapter 550 The Heavenly Cycle Technique. Appeared. Asks for a subscription, 5. Until he opened 350 apertures and could no longer open them. His father said that he did not have the fate to cultivate the heavenly cycle technique. He was not convinced, he did not believe in fate. Thus, he opened 350 apertures of Qianjun, an old Qianjun. In the same generation, there were people who had reached the level of mountains and seas. He went to explore the heavens. No matter how strong Qianjun was, he was only Qianjun. He had encountered countless dangers. He had killed countless powerful enemies. He had killed tens of thousands of stones and soared into the sky. He was probably the #1 genius in the heavens, a genius who had entered the heaven hunting list with a body of Qianjun. There had never been such a thing. He did not enter 10,000 stones, nor did he soar into the sky. With a body of Qianjun, he fought in the battlefield of the heavens for 3 years. 3 years later, he had killed a top tier soaring into the sky. On that day, he had opened his apertures. He opened the last 10 apertures. One day, he closed his apertures, and then he soared into the sky. The human emperor gave him his blessings. When he soared into the sky, he killed the mountains and seas. His contemporaries who had entered the mountains and seas were killed on the spot. He too, was #1 in the heavens. At this moment, many memories suddenly appeared in he too's mind. He seemed to be recalling the past, recalling the past. The glory of the human race. Murmuring, he remembered his father's last words before he died. He too, remember, you are destined to be glorious in the world. You will definitely restore the glory of the human emperor. At that time, that era was not called the ancient times. Because, at that time, it was not long before the destruction of the ancient times. The glory of the human emperor. Murmuring, he too shook his head. His head hurt a little. He looked at the entrance of the 6th floor. He was a little impulsive. He wanted to see the guy with the wolf head. It was fake. That was a human. It was definitely a human. This was the human's heavenly cycle acupuncture point diagram. It was almost impossible for non-humans to master it. Who is it? He too murmured. Did I see Su Yu? Su Yu disguised as a wolf, right? Damn kid, he left before I arrived. Did he know I was here? Are you afraid? You knew I was here. Did he know I was going to beat you up and settle the score with you? He too mumbled. A moment later, a dumbstruck man appeared beside him. He said in a daze, "Who are you going to beat up?" He too smiled. "I'm going to beat up a hateful human kid. But I'll let him know that PM invincible in the same realm. I'll beat him up in the same realm. Then what if I can't?" He too didn't know why he asked this question, but he still asked. He too laughed. "Then I'll beat him up first, then I'll beat him up in the same realm." An impeccable answer. He too was stupefied. He felt that something was wrong, but he didn't know what was wrong, so he didn't say anything. He too laughed and said in a loud voice, "Boys, let's kill. Investigate, and don't let any of them go." After he too said that, he looked up at the sky again and laughed. "Su Yu. PM very vengeful. Those who offended me are all dead. You're a genius. I actually like you." He realized that Su Yu was deducing the method of the heavenly cycle. Damn it, he was actually deducing it himself. Even though it seemed to have been perfected a lot, perhaps Su Yu had obtained it by accident. Perfecting the method of the heavenly cycle was something unimaginable. At this moment, he was certain that that person was Su Yu. Don't think that I can't recognize him just because he's pretending to be a wolf. HMH, this seat will capture all the wolves. Are you a human or a hybrid of a human and a wolf? Could it be that you're really a wolf head? He too wasn't too sure. A hybrid might be able to cultivate a human cultivation technique. He too no longer thought about it. As long as Su Yu was in the starry manor, he wouldn't be able to escape. At this moment, Su Yu went up to the 6th level and frowned slightly. The tribulation, divine text was still jumping. What the hell? He too isn't searching the 5th level, but is coming up directly. Su Yu frowned. At this moment, several people around saw Su Yu coming up. A Sun Moon expert shouted, "Dark Demon Wolf Clan guy, what's the situation down there?" As he spoke, he sounded a bit nervous. They were here to guard the passage, but in reality, they were scared to death. They were afraid that the Death Spirit Sovereign would appear. However, since someone had asked them to come, they didn't dare to not come. Right now, the entrance to the 7th floor hadn't been opened yet, so they were also anxious. The people who were opening the entrance were also anxious. They had no choice but to let some people watch from the side. Su Yu looked around. There were only 4 people, 1 sun and moon, and 3 mountains and seas. They all looked very nervous. The sun and moon were only at the 1st level of the sun and moon. They were so strong that they didn't dare to come and were unwilling to come. They were not from the big clans, but from the small clans. Su Yu smiled. It's not a big problem. He too just entered the 5th level. That's good. As he spoke, the sun and moon felt that something was wrong. You're too bold, and you're too disrespectful to me. Just as he was thinking of capturing dozens of sun and moon beasts, he instantly grabbed the 4 of them into the book. Su Yu didn't kill the sun and moon. If he did, it would create a strange phenomenon. Presumably, the people who sent him here had the same thought. If he died, everyone would know that a powerful expert had come. It would be fine to deal with the undead, but the undead wouldn't care about this. See, it's not effective against me. Su Yu didn't care about anything else. He continued to try. He felt that he was almost able to deduce it. 368. Su Yu's heart was filled with joy. Once again, his buttocks exploded. This did not matter. He had already reached 368. There were only 2 possibilities for the last 2 apertures. It was nothing more than the question of who to connect first. I'll be lucky once. Once I succeed, I won't have to explode again. Su Yu prayed that he would not have to explode again. Only one of 2, this is not high requirements. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 2565, Chapter 2565, Chapter 550, The Law of the Universe. Asks for a subscription, 6. Chapter 2565, Chapter 550, The Law of the Universe. Asks for a subscription, 6. At this moment, he was even more nervous than when he had exploded hundreds of times before. In the next moment, his acupuncture points lit up again. Boom! Su Yu's face turned ashen. Where was my luck? Why could I explode once for both of them? Humph! He too. It's all your fault. Su Yu snorted. You came too quickly and I had no choice but to come up. Otherwise, on the 5th floor, I might be able to save one explosion. However, he quickly recovered his smile. At this moment, his smile was exceptionally bright. I seemed to have succeeded. From start to finish, he had only blown up 138 times. In the next moment, Su Yu circulated the last possibility. One by one, the acupuncture points were lit up. 1, 2, 300. 359. The last acupuncture point, the sky-connecting acupuncture point. Boom! This wasn't the sound of an explosion, but the sound of a tremor. At this moment, the 360 apertures were like ovens as they shook within his body. Rumble. The intense sound of a tremor reverberated within his body. A large amount of dirty blood was expelled from Su Yu's body. This was the accumulation of his recent injuries. The blood was expelled. Not only that, clouds descended from the sky. There were many, many. Su Yu cursed inwardly. What the F***ck? Such a huge commotion. There was even a reward. How could this be possible? F***ck wouldn't he discovered. He instantly swept up all the clouds and disappeared from where he stood. He had just left when several sun and moon experts appeared on the spot. All of them had solemn expressions on their faces. What's going on? Heaven and earth rewards. Where's Fu Hu? Why did they disappear? They shouldn't be dead yet. Otherwise, there wouldn't be no movements, they're not undead spirits, and there's no reward for killing them either. If they didn't kill Fu Hu, could it be that they killed the other 3 mountains and seas, and that's why there's a reward? The sun and moon experts were all extremely solemn. What was going on? Who had come? Who had come up from the 5th floor? More importantly, Fu Hu was at the 1st level of the sun and moon, yet he disappeared without a trace. Furthermore, why did the other party obtain the heaven and earth rewards? Even if they didn't arrive in time, they could still feel the powerful energy of the clouds descending. The sun and moon glanced at each other with a grave expression. The 6th floor was no longer safe. They had to go to the 7th floor immediately. Before the threat of the river map was removed, something unexpected seemed to have happened. And at that moment, Su Yu was trembling non-stop. One acupuncture point after another was attacking him. Awesome! It was cleansing and shaking. His entire body was about to turn into a furnace. The 360 acupuncture points were undergoing a transformation. The yuan qi in the acupuncture points was actually absorbing the heaven and earth reward from before. And the heaven and earth reward from before was actually an extremely special yuan qi. Su Yu did not know what it was but only knew that it was helping him complete a transformation. The 9 transformations of yuan qi had officially begun. The heaven and earth reward seemed to be helping him complete a yuan qi transformation. Was this the reward? The saber qi in 144 of the acupuncture points was actually dispersed at this moment. Suyu felt a trace of the power of rules. The power of the reward might have something to do with the rules. At the same time. Level 7. Xia Longwu was slightly stunned. Suyu. He's not too far away from me. No. No, this guy seemed to have dispelled my blade energy. He knew that Suyu had already completed a simple transformation of his vital qi. It was as if he had entered Lingyun, but it was a paradox. However, today, Suyu seemed to have dispelled his own blade energy. He actually looked down on my blade energy. Xia Longwu's eyes were slightly dull. I, Xia Longwu, am a strong cultivator who has attained Tao. I have killed unrivaled existences before I attained Tao. My blade energy before I attained Tao was also unrivaled in the world. Someone had used my blade energy to complete the transformation of my vital energy. Xia Longwu felt that that fellow was extremely powerful. However, today, that fellow had dispelled this blade energy. How arrogant! Xia Longwu growled. You didn't use my saber qi to transform. Could it be that you think my saber qi is very weak? This kid, he actually sneaked in. Not only did he sneak in, he even dispelled my saber qi near me. Damn kid, how arrogant. Don't let me meet you. The key is. After dispelling my saber qi, I might not be able to find him. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 2566, Chapter 2566, Chapter 551, Ling Yun's First Transformation L. Chapter 2566, Chapter 551, Ling Yun's First Transformation L. At this moment, Suyu quickly hid in a mountain col, revealing his civilization and concealing the qi of heaven and earth. The blade energy in the 144 apertures dispersed one after another. All along, Suyu was actually considered as Ling Yun's first transformation. However, there were only 144 apertures that had undergone a transformation. Originally, Suyu was prepared to complete the transformation of different apertures according to different cultivation techniques. In the end, Xing Hong said that this would result in the strength and attributes of the vitality in the apertures to be different. Hence, the method of the heavenly cycle was created. Simultaneously transforming 360 acupuncture points. After defeating the Shelong martial qi, the vitality that was rewarded by the heaven and earth just now actually contained a little bit of the power of laws. This also made Suyu's transformation even simpler and more powerful. The 9 transformations of Ling Yun, according to the difference in foundation, the quality of each transformation of vitality was different. Otherwise, if everyone was the same, wouldn't the foundation that was laid earlier become a joke? At this moment, Suyu's 360 acupuncture points were lit up one by one, tempered by the special reward of yuan qi. The acupuncture points became brighter and brighter. Each acupuncture point was like a star, dazzling and eye-catching. The transformation had officially begun. Suyu was so moved that he was about to cry. I'm so hard, I've finally stepped into Ling Yun. It had been almost 2 years since he joined the higher education institution. Anping had entered the higher education institution in 350 years. Now, it was almost the middle of the 352nd year. In 2 years, I've finally stepped into the Ling Yun realm. Am I considered a genius? Yes. However, in this era, it wasn't as if there weren't people who had stepped into Ling Yun in 2 years. Very soon, there would be people who would step into Ling Yun within 2 years. Suyu was on the verge of tears. Probably no Ling Yun would be as hard as him. First, he searched for 360 origin acupuncture points and tried countless cultivation techniques. He found 360 origin acupuncture points and laid down the strongest 10,000 stones. After that, he searched for different body forging techniques and completed 72 body forging techniques to lay down the strongest soaring technique. Now that he was in Lingyun, he had finally found the heaven revolving technique. From the looks of it, he would be able to lay down the strongest Lingyun again. Hopefully, this cultivation technique would still be able to easily close his acupuncture points when he reached the mountain and sea realm. Otherwise, I would really cry. It should be possible. The mountain and sea as one acupoint would be able to form one of the 9 acupoints. This was the transformation from the mountain and sea realm to the sun and moon realm. There definitely wouldn't be any problems. If there were any more problems, Suyu would go crazy. Deducing the technique and finding the technique would be too difficult. As he thought about this, Suyu quickly took out a large number of treasures, such as the emperor's saliva, water condensation beads, dragon blood fruit. He did not eat them. Instead, he just piled them beside him and released a large amount of extremely pure heaven yuan qi to satisfy the transformation of his acupoints. He was not lacking in money. A normal person would have no problem completing the 9 transformations of a few 5 elemental spirit fruits. Suyu was different. He was too strong. The transformation of his sun and moon strength had already consumed a lot of energy. Furthermore, Suyu was unwilling to just fool around with the transformation. His body seemed to be recovering. His acupoints rumbled. Yuan qi gathered in each of his acupoints. Gradually, the yuan qi began to condense into a shape. It was no longer the shape of a saber but a book. Yes, the shape of a book. At this moment, the 360 acupoints seemed to acknowledge his identity as a scholar. Even his yuan qi had transformed into the shape of a book. 1, 2, 3. The yuan qi in each of the apertures had completed its transformation and recovery. Book after book floated in the apertures. 300. 350. When the final aperture had completed its yuan qi transformation, a loud boom sounded. Suyu had emptied his mind and everything. A huge hole had been blasted out from his bottom. Awesome! All the impurities and sundries were instantly spewed out by him. At that moment, only his body that was as pure as crystal was left. Suyu said that it was the fragrance of the immortals. No, if the current him was seen by others, the old Ho King, the iron-eating beast, the golden-winged great Peng. They would probably want to eat him. He was the real fragrance. It was so fragrant that it would probably make the great demons drool. Suyu closed his eyes and enjoyed the feeling of transformation. His yuan qi did not change much, but its quality was much higher. He felt it casually and smacked the void casually. Suyu felt it for a while and exhaled lightly. The gas also emitted a fragrance. About a 50% increase. Suyu smiled. To be able to achieve such a high enhancement at his level was already out of his expectations. Originally, Suyu's physical strength had exceeded 1.72 million apertures after casting his body 72 times. His defense was actually even stronger. It was equivalent to casting his body twice more, both exceeding the defense of 2 million apertures. This was under the condition that his yang aperture had not been opened. After opening his yang aperture, the amplification was doubled, approaching 3 to 5 million apertures. According to Suyu's own deduction, this was the strength of the 7th level of the Sun-Moon. He had calculated that the average 8th level would be around 4 million, and those who had just entered the 9th level would be around 5 million. At the 8th or 9th level of the Sun-Moon, there were actually not many trash. All of them could be considered little geniuses, except for some monsters. This was the normal level. And at this moment, Suyu had not opened the yang aperture. His physical strength had exceeded 2.5 million aperture strength. He did not know if he could double the amplification after opening the yang aperture. If he could, Once Suyu opened his yang aperture, he would have the combat strength of someone who had just entered the 9th level of the Sun-Moon realm. The terrifying me. As he muttered, Suyu sucked in a breath of cold air. The void trembled and a small black hole was sucked out. I, Suyu, am so strong. How could there be such a Ling Yun? It was only the 1st level. He had only completed 1 transformation. If I complete 9 transformations. Oh my god. Suyu was shocked. He did not have high expectations. Every transformation could help him complete 50% of his strength. When he reached the 9 transformations of Ling Yun, he calculated with his fingers. Oh my god. You're tuning into the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 2567, Chapter 2567, Chapter 551, Ling Yun's First Transformation 2. Chapter 2567, Chapter 551, Ling Yun's First Transformation 2. Didn't that mean that after Ling Yun's 5th transformation, he didn't open his yang aperture, and his battle prowess exceeded 10 million apertures? His 6th transformation was close to 20 million. His 9th transformation was completed, and his battle prowess exceeded 60 million. Suyu gulped. Just how strong is quasi-invincible? Most quasi-invincible people only had 2 incarnations, and a small number of them had 3 incarnations. Once they had 3 incarnations, it was actually time for them to attain Dao. However, there were some people who couldn't attain Dao even after having 3 incarnations. This was also true. For example, Yun Chen. For example, Kong Kong. These people actually had 3 incarnations, but they had not fused with each other. Perhaps they were too powerful and could not fuse with each other, or something like that. How much was the peak of the 9th level of the Sun-Moon? Suyu did not know. He had never fought someone at this level before. How powerful was quasi-undefeatable? He could be considered to have the strength of 10 million apertures. Suyu was speechless. I've completed the 9 transformations of Ling Yun, 1 punch at a time. Of course, the prerequisite was I could break the river of time. Some quasi-invincibility, or the peak of the 9th level of the Sun and Moon, could open the river of time. I'm just brute force. Suyu frowned slightly. Yes, this was a problem. No matter how strong your brute force was, you had to be able to hit your opponent. You were unable to penetrate the river of time. No one was fast, and no one was fast when dodging. No matter how strong you were still just a clumsy beast, while those quasi-invincible hunters were all agile hunters. Looks like my next mission isn't to strengthen myself anymore, but to increase my speed and increase the laws. Time and space were both very special things. Only by mastering these things could he unleash his full strength. So, the best way is actually, godly prose. Suyu muttered. Yes, godly prose. For example, the godly prose of space and time. For example, the godly prose of slow that he had never paid much attention. This was the godly prose that he had comprehended when he was learning the time cultivation technique. In fact, it could be considered as half a natural godly prose. This godly prose actually involved some laws of time. When the godly prose was unleashed to the maximum, it could cause the other party to stagnate. The only way is to make the opponent not have the time to activate the river of time and let me get close to him. Then, when I reach the 9th level of Ling Yun, I won't be afraid of any quasi-invincibility. With a strength of more than 60 million apertures, just pure explosive force. Suyu felt that it was really worse than being invincible. It was too terrifying. The key was still the mastery of some laws. If this Suyu couldn't do it, then he would only be a target for others to hit. Therefore, I can only give him a slap out of the blue and kill him instantly without giving him any time to react. Therefore, I have to keep a low profile. Of course, the current him was only at first level Ling Yun. It was still too early. He had only completed one of the 9 transformations. As for the remaining 8 transformations, Suyu did not have the heaven and earth rewards from before. It would be very difficult for him to complete the transformation. With his current strength, ordinary treasures were like a drop in the bucket to him. He wouldn't be able to complete the transformation. Even if he managed to barely complete it, the amplification would be too weak. Only a top-tier treasure could do it. 9-leaf sky lotus. Suyu's eyes flickered. That's right, 9-leaf sky lotus. Only a treasure like this could allow him to successfully complete the 9 transformations. Once he completed it, even if he didn't master some laws, he wouldn't be able to defeat those unrivaled experts. Even if it was fine, he wouldn't be able to kill him so easily. My defense is terrifyingly strong. It's terrifyingly strong to the point that you might not be able to kill me with a single palm strike. Instead, you might even be able to shatter the bones in your Nana. At that time, although I wasn't able to become unrivaled, I was able to do it so that I wouldn't provoke you. If you provoke me, if you're not careful, you'll be killed by me. At that time, Suyu was a clumsy bear, while the other party was a nimble fox. It was useless. If you weren't careful, I would be able to kill you. It was only at this moment that Suyu heaved a sigh of relief. He had offended too many people. He was invincible and at the immortal soul 3rd level. There were many of them now. As for his own combat strength, it was not considered top-notch in this era. He only relied on some people and some backers. No matter how strong a backer was, he was not himself or his parents. Be it the stone sculptures or Harry Ball's parents, they were all outsiders after all. Some of them were united because of benefits, while others were united because of other things. Relying on outsiders could only be done when there was no other choice. If they really wanted to establish a foothold in the myriad realms, they would have to rely on their own strength. As long as I take the 9-leafed heavenly lotus, then PLL have the capital to establish a foothold in the myriad realms. Suyu murmured to himself. After taking the 9-leafed heavenly lotus, he would complete the 9 transformations in his starry sky mansion, and even instantly step into the 9th level of the mountain and sea realm. Only then would he truly be able to establish a foothold in the myriad realms. Anyone who wanted to kill him would have to consider whether or not they would be killed by him. Ordinary treasures are already insufficient to support the transformation of my vitality, so I have to get this thing. At Suyu's stage, don't just think of him as Ling Yun, think of him as the sun and the moon. Ling Yun was just a name that meant nothing. Suyu stood up. At this moment, he was in an exceptionally good mood. After withdrawing his civil will, Suyu finally had the time to look at the other places on the 6th floor. There were mountains everywhere, and canyons everywhere. There were incomparably tall mountains, and the mountains were connected to the mountains. They were curved and curved like a maze. Walking in the air and flying up to take a look, he instantly felt trouble. There was a miasma corroding his body in the sky. Of course, Suyu could withstand it. The degree of corrosion was probably at the early stages of the sun and moon. Under the sun and moon, I can only move below. This is extremely difficult. This level is very dangerous. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 2568, Chapter 2568, Chapter 551, Ling Yun's First Change 3. Chapter 2568, Chapter 551, Ling Yun's First Change 3. Suyu sighed. There was no need to ask. He already knew what this place was. The location of the intestines. The intestines, the heavenly aperture. Suyu smiled. The heavenly aperture wouldn't be at the entrance of the 6th to 7th level, right? Not necessarily. The position of the heavenly aperture and the position of the end of the intestines were actually quite far apart. It might be inside the 7th level. Of course, it had nothing to do with him. At this moment, Suyu didn't really care about these things. PV learned the cultivation technique. Of course, if he had enough time, he would actually want to search through the acupoints one by one to strengthen the corresponding acupoints. This way, his acupoints would be more stable and stronger. Wasn't it because he had encountered that troublesome fellow, he too? Since he had been following below, how could he have the time to look for it? At this moment, even without young apertures, I have the true strength of the 6th level of the sun and moon. Suyu laughed. Young apertures were not easy to open. If he could not open it, he would not open it. Now that he did not have the old turtle to help him seal it, he would have to rely on himself. Young apertures absorbed Yuan Qi too quickly. Unless he had no other choice. Suyu did not want to open it either. Without opening young apertures, his body's explosive strength exceeded 2.5 million apertures. It was very powerful. With the help of these rank for divine runes, such as strength, shock, and break, even an ordinary 7th level sun-moon expert would dare to fight. This was under the situation of not opening his young apertures and not swallowing the blood essence. Otherwise, Suyu would be even stronger. When my physical body's power reaches 10 million apertures, I'll try to swallow the invincible blood essence. Suyu's eyes flickered. He needed to get some invincible blood essence. When his physical body reached the power of 10 million apertures and devoured the invincible essence blood, he might be able to gain some insight into the time law. At that time, if his combat strength was strong, he could suddenly open the time passage to save his life or kill someone. It was all unexpected. 9-leaf sky lotus. Suyu looked into the depths of the cave. There was no time to find the treasure. He had to go to the 7th floor. He had to sneak into the tunnel before everyone left. Otherwise, if an invincible guard came to guard the entrance to the 7th floor, he wouldn't be able to go up. His body shook slightly, pushing away the miasma. Suyu didn't care about how crooked the tunnel was, it had nothing to do with him. Under the sun and the moon, the 6th floor was considered a dangerous place with no one protecting it. To Suyu, it was nothing. This time, many people wanted to cry. They didn't get any benefits. Now that they were forced to the 6th level, it was extremely dangerous. Soon, they would have to go up to the 7th level. It was too bleak. To me, it's nothing. Suyu laughed and thought about who he should disguise as. Wolf too. This identity wasn't enough. This was because this clan didn't have an invincible person on the 7th level. Once they entered the 7th level, they might be beaten to death. Even an invincible expert wouldn't care about such matters. Thus, I need to disguise myself as a major race, Suyu said. Who was the most suitable? Those with high statuses and powerful cultivation had to disguise themselves as underlings or weaklings. There was no point in doing so, and weaklings wouldn't be able to climb up. Solo. Major race. Suyu suddenly thought of a person who had killed that celestial on the 1st floor, a Sun-Moon Realm 3 Dan celestial. No one knew that he was dead. The moment he entered, he was killed by Suyu. No one knew that he was on the 1st level. He was a member of the Dao King. Perhaps he could get close to Dao Cheng and kill him while he was at it. It was not a good sign that he had not killed Dao Cheng after so long. There were still anomalies when the sun and moon fell. However, no one knew about the death of that person. Those who knew were also dead. No, Huang Jiu might know. The moment she came out, she might have seen his face. Suyu's eyes flickered, and he quickly put down his thoughts. It was fine, Harry Ball was still in her mind. He took out the civilization will and flipped to the page of the immortals. At this moment, this page was very powerful. Suyu had fused quite a bit with the immortals. Immortals, third level of the sun and moon. At this moment, one of the lines recorded some information. At the end of the line, a small head appeared. When he looked inside, he saw that it was the same fellow who had been killed earlier. Some people of the same realm would leave some marks after being absorbed by Suyu. For example, there were 3 marks on the page of the Celestials at the 7th level of Lingyun realm. Suyu had absorbed 3 people to represent this realm. The sun and moon flickered in Suyu's eyes. He did not look at it too much. His will instantly merged into the head. He was enlightened, looking at the past, perhaps he could also look at the future, but Suyu did not have the ability yet, perhaps he didn't discover the ability within. Disguising, naturally, was the best way to know everything about him. Knowing his past, knowing everything about him, learning his habits, learning his cultivation techniques. All of these could make the disguise even better. Suyu seemed to be dreaming. It was a dream. He saw this immortal's past. Speaking of which, there was still a lot of fate. This person's name was Lingheng, and he had the strength of the 3rd level of the sun and moon. He was also a person from the Dao domain of the Dao King. The key was not this, but his identity. He was the disciple of the Dao King, Ming He. Fairy Ming He. Suyu smiled. Of course, he remembered this fairy. Dao Cheng had been on the heaven roll because of this, and because of this, he would fight to the death with Suyu. That was his teacher, an expert at the 7th level of the sun and moon. In the ancient city of heaven destruction, he was trapped by Suyu in the ancient city. In the end, Ming He became ruthless and let Dao Cheng kill her personally. Ming He let Dao Cheng experience what it meant to be desperate. She had been teaching this student until the moment of her death. One mistake and you might not die, but your lover will die, your teacher will die, and you will still die by your own hands. From that day onwards, Dao Cheng had changed. At that moment, Suyu did not expect Lingheng to be Ming He's disciple. In that case, he could be considered Dao Cheng's senior brother. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 2569, Chapter 2569, Chapter 551, Ling Yun's First Change 4. Chapter 2569, Chapter 551, Ling Yun's First Change 4. Interesting. Suyu laughed. The outside world knows that Lingheng is dead, and so does Dao Wang. Dao Cheng has the heaven-hunting talent list in his hands, but it's a pity that the outside world is now transmitting the news as a whole, not individually. In this way, naturally, no one would deliberately send a message to Dao Cheng to tell him that Lingheng was dead. There was no need for that. At the stage of the sun and moon, the only people who knew whether or not Lingheng was dead were themselves or their family members. They were connected by blood. If they were not connected by blood, even their teachers and friends would not give them their blood. For example, Dao Cheng would investigate whether or not Gu Zhu was dead. He had collected a strand of hair to deal with him. When it came to the sun and moon, these things would not be leaked. Therefore, Suyu was certain that unless there was a direct descendant of Lingheng here, no one would know that he was dead. And in my memories, there aren't any of these. There are quite a number of descendants of this fellow. Unfortunately, none of them are qualified to enter. Suyu briefly combed through the ins and outs of his identity to make sure that no one would discover him. Only then did he transform into Lingheng. His temperament, appearance, and strength were all the same. Change, and all sorts of divine runes were activated. His hair gradually grew longer, and very quickly, his long hair fluttered in the wind, exuding an awe-inspiring immortal aura. I have to find an excuse. With Lingheng's strength, it's fine for him to appear at the 5th level or the 6th level. Since he hasn't appeared for such a long time, then he must have found a treasure. He had been exploring the treasure, so it was very normal for him not to appear in the past few days. Treasure. Su Yu looked around. Where would he find a treasure? He was also close to the entrance to the 7th floor. If he made a bit of a ruckus, it would attract people to investigate him. Shinkei Acupoint, there should be a treasure. Su Yu smiled. Yes, his belly button should be a treasure ground. Let's go and take a look. Perhaps this location was at the entrance. If it was there, then forget it. If it wasn't there, he could make some ruckus and find a treasure. Everyone knew that I had been searching for treasures here, which was why I didn't appear. This was in line with my sudden appearance. Searching for treasures wasn't that simple. Su Yu was high in the sky, enduring the miasma. He searched around, and very quickly, he landed in a huge basin. The surroundings were surrounded by mountains, but in the middle of the mountains, there was a basin that was quite eye-catching. However, the divine citadel wasn't underground. It should be on one side of the void. As expected, the first layer of the basin was a black barrier. That should be the belly. Who cared? That should be where the belly button was. However, the belly button was facing out. No one knew if there were any treasures inside, so it was fine if there were none. They could just make it themselves. However, they had to conform to the rule of treasures appearing here. Just as Su Yu changed his identity again. At the entrance of the 7th floor. In a huge mountain kernel. Experts of various clans began to gather. Some hadn't arrived yet, but they were still searching for their clansmen scattered on the 6th floor. Some were still lost on the 6th floor. When the sun and moon experts who had been scouting earlier returned to the entrance of the 7th floor, Zhan Wushuang looked at the expert of the God clan and asked, Langshi, what happened? The miasma surrounded them, so even they couldn't see much. The ones who went to investigate were all experts with high levels of sun and moon, so their senses were much sharper. The celestial expert who was questioned by him, he frowned and said, Fu Hu and the others have disappeared. Fu Hu is probably not dead. The others are not sure. Maybe he was killed and a heaven and earth reward appeared. That might be a genius who killed Shanhai. Fu Hu might have gone after him. That was the only conclusion he could come up with. A genius who killed a few mountains and seas and received a heaven and earth reward, while Fu Hu went after that person. Which genius didn't arrive? Someone asked, and someone said calmly, there are too many who haven't arrived. A whole bunch of them are probably dead. Of course. A whole bunch of geniuses had died here, but who knew who hadn't arrived? At this moment, more than 1,000 people had gathered here. And this wasn't all of the 6th floor. Apart from a few hundred people on the 7th floor, the rest of the living people in the entire mansion were all on the 6th floor. And this place was also a gathering of geniuses. Modwa Na, Zhan Wushuang, Xian Wuji, Mingyu, Dao Cheng. These people were all here at this moment. And on the other side, the small piece of land occupied by the human race was also a gathering of experts. Chief Hu was there, Director Ho of Daming Prefecture was there, Lu Wenyan and Hong Tan were there, and at this moment, the auras of these people seemed to be a little stronger than before. It seemed that over the past few days, they had all obtained some gains. There were over 1,000 people, and on the human race's side, there were around 300 people. In total, it was about the same as the Celestials. It was slightly more than the Celestials and Devils, because the Celestials and Devils had suffered heavy losses on the 5th floor. Now, added together, there were around 500 people. The 4 great clans had nearly 1,100 experts. The other clans, the Dragon Clan, the Heaven Hunting Pavilion, and the Ancient Clan, added together, there were only around 300 people. There were around 1,400 people. The rest were either dead or on the 7th floor. Perhaps there were still some scattered on the 6th floor, but soon, they would all arrive. On the human side, General Manager who was a person with a high status and could be considered a top-tier expert. The others had all gone to the 7th floor. At this moment, general manager who looked around and sighed in his heart. The losses of the human race were not too great. However, under the sun and moon, he looked around and found that there were more than 100 people missing. They were all dead. Almost all the humans had arrived. General manager who did not waste any more time, he said calmly, "Everyone, it's time to give us the rules. Don't waste time. Who will leave first?" The opening of the 7th floor requires the opening of a supporting passage at the middle stage of the sun and moon realm. There's no point in fighting here. If he too comes, everyone will die. There are too many people, and the passage can only pass a few people at a time. Whoever comes first, quickly make a decision and leave. You're tuning into the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 2570, Chapter 2570, Chapter 551, The First Change of Lingyun 5. Chapter 2570, Chapter 551, The First Change of Lingyun 5. Even though everyone wasn't too satisfied with the loss of the human race, they didn't want to cause any more trouble. Soon, a top-notch expert at the 8th level of the Sun-Moon realm from the celestial race said calmly, "The immortals, gods, and devils will leave alternately. Next, the dragon race and the various ancient races will leave. Lastly, the human race will leave." As soon as these words were said, the expressions of the humans changed. Chief Hu said coldly, "Yuba, are you sure you have to do this?" The immortal expert said calmly, "I'm sure. If you're not convinced, you can try. Ask the various races if they agree or not." Beside Chief Hu, a black-armored expert said coldly, "Then you can try. Are you sure you can defeat us? If you don't want to leave, then we'll take turns to leave." While everyone was arguing, in the distance, Modwa was looking around. Suddenly, he said, "Everyone, be quiet for a moment. If you have the time to argue, you can open the tunnel and leave. There are 10 people in a clan, and each clan will leave. If the small clans and the ancient clans have few people, they can leave together. The small clans and the ancient clans will leave first. The 5 great clans of gods, demons, immortals, and dragons will stay behind." As soon as these words were said, the small clans and the ancient clans were extremely grateful. They had few people and were really afraid that these people would leave them behind after opening the tunnel. They did not expect that Modwa Na would say that they should leave first. Xian Wuji frowned and said, "Modwa Na, you are your saint. There is no need for us to follow you, right?" Modwa Na calmly said, "Then you should leave first. The small clans and the ancient race can't leave. In the end, they will definitely go crazy and will only be willing to die together. The human race is at the back. There are several hundred humans. If we really want to fight, then we shouldn't leave. Before we exterminate the human race, we will probably reach the river map." The speed at which he too came up to the first level only lasted for 6 to 6 hours. I'm afraid he is already at the 5th level. After a period of time, he will reach the 6th level. Xian Wuji frowned. On the other side, the geniuses exchanged glances. Zhan Wushuang said coldly, "Then the small clans and the Gu clan will go first. Be quick. The other big clans will have 10 people each. Leave quickly. Don't fight over these meaningless things. Let's fight to the death until we reach the 7th level." Ming Yu, Long Yingyue, and the other geniuses also nodded and left quickly. What were they fighting over here? The group of people were discussing when suddenly, a rumbling sound came from afar. Multicolored light shone. Among the crowd, some of the suns and moons looked over and said in surprise, "A treasure has appeared." In an instant, 7 or 8 suns and moons disappeared from where they were. In the distance, Su Yu fumbled for a long time and finally dug a hole. When the hole appeared, he immediately smiled. "I really have good taste. There really is a treasure." It was a huge blood lingji mushroom that grew on the back of his navel. He didn't know how it grew, and he didn't know if it was a part of old Zhou's body. However, the thing was really good. With just a glance, Suyu knew that it was only slightly inferior to the ancient dragon blood tree that he had seized previously. Although it could not be used as a carrier, this thing was definitely a precious medicine. Of course, the multicolored light was not that dense. It was because Suyu had stimulated the yuan qi within it that caused the multicolored light to shoot in all directions. At that moment, Suyu had just reached out to grab it when his expression suddenly changed. He shouted, "How dare you? Who dares to seize my treasure?" With a cold shout, a long sword pierced through the void with a hum and charged towards a hand. That palm slapped over, causing the long sword to tremble. Suyu's entire body trembled and a mouthful of blood spurted out. Suyu was furious. "How dare you? Bastard! I've guarded this item for several days before it matured. Do you really think that there's no one in the immortal race?" The moment these words were said, the 8th level Sun-Moon realm. Immortal Yubo, who had spoken with Manager Hu earlier, suddenly walked out from the void and shouted, "Enough! This is an item from the immortal race. Do you all want to be enemies with the immortal race?" A moment later, 7 or 8 sun and moon experts walked out from the void. The one who had just attacked was a long-haired blood-colored demon, a fellow from the blood-fire demon race. At this moment, that blood-fire demon race expert. He snickered and said, "This is good stuff. The heaven blood lingji is the most suitable for my race. Isn't this Lingheng? How about giving it to me?" Suyu's face was cold as he looked at him and said coldly, "Are you dreaming? Do you really think that my Dao King race is easy to bully? Do you think that the immortal race is easy to bully? Lord Yubo is here, and you want to steal my treasure." The immortal Yubo frowned slightly. He couldn't be bothered with this matter. Lingheng was from the Dao King bloodline, but he wasn't. He was from the ancient immortal bloodline. However, in the outside world, the ancient immortal bloodline was the leader, so he still had to manage it. At this moment, Yubo frowned and said, "Lingheng found this. Xuetai, if you want it, we'll talk about it when we get out. The heaven blood lingji mushroom is good, but it's not very useful to the immortal race. We can exchange it when we get out. Don't cause any more trouble at this moment. Do you want the humans to take advantage of the fight between the immortals and demons?" The fellow from the blood-fire demon race laughed. Beside him, an expert from the incipient demon race frowned and said, "Xuetai, we can talk about it outside. Many of the blood-fire demons have died. Do you really want to cause trouble?" The blood-fire demon race was disobedient now. They didn't even greet each other when they snatched the things. When Xuetai saw that everyone was looking at him, he snorted and said coldly, "Let's hope that he can keep it. Lingheng is only at the 3rd level of the sun and moon. He should be more tactful. Of course, I'll give everyone face. Let's forget about it this time." Suyu put away the blood lingji mushroom with a cold face. Seeing that they were still around, he said coldly, "Everyone can leave now. What else do you want?" Yubo was stunned and said, "You've been here for a few days." "I've been here since I came in." Yubo looked around and found it quiet. He frowned and said, "You're a fortune teller. Let's go. Let's meet at the entrance and go to the 7th floor." You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 2571, Chapter 2571, Chapter 551, Ling Yun's First Change 6. Chapter 2571, Chapter 551, Ling Yun's First Change 6. Level 7. You didn't bring along the talent hunter list? No. No wonder. Yubo couldn't help but sigh. This fellow's luck wasn't bad. If no treasures appeared and no one came, he might not even know what had happened. Once everyone left, he might not have the chance to ascend to level 7, perhaps he would be killed by he too here. He was from the immortal race after all. Although they were not from the same lineage, a third-level Sun Moon was not bad. He quickly said, "Let's go first. We'll talk when we get there." Your Dao King lineage, Dao Cheng, is also there. Su Yu frowned and said, "Go to the 7th level. The 7th level is more dangerous. There's an invincible undead coming from below." Yu Bo gave a brief explanation. Su Yu's expression changed again, and he quickly followed him into the air. Yu Bo sighed again and said, "Your luck is not bad. We're all ready to leave. Once we're gone, you might not have a chance to open the 7th floor's passageway at the 3rd level of the Sun and Moon." Su Yu's expression changed and said, "It's only been a few days, and such a big change. Lord Yu Bo, then my lineage. Dao Cheng is here, and Pan Hu is also here. As for the others, I haven't seen them." Su Yu's expression changed. All of them are gone. There are more than 10 people from my lineage who have entered. Apart from Lord Tai He who might be on the 7th level, doesn't that mean that everyone else is gone? Yu Bo nodded. This was considered not bad. What was there to be dissatisfied about? Including you, at least 4 people have survived. This was not bad at all. As for the Tai He that Su Yu mentioned, that was in existence at the 9th level of the Sun-Moon realm. He was definitely on the 7th level. Of course, who knew if he was dead or not? Maybe he was killed by Invincible. A moment later, Su Yu arrived at the entrance to the 7th level. Dao Cheng was slightly surprised when he saw Su Yu. An expert at the 3rd level of the Sun-Moon realm beside him saw Su Yu and was immediately overjoyed. "Ling Heng, you're still here." His bloodline was not strong enough now. Fortunately, Ling Heng was still alive. He thought he was dead. Su Yu smiled and said, "Pan Hu, of course I'm here. I wanted to look for you earlier, but unfortunately, I didn't meet you. Forget it, let's not talk about this." As he spoke, he cupped his hands toward Dao Cheng and sighed. "Your Highness. I only just found out." Dao Cheng also bowed slightly. "It's good that senior brother Ling Heng is fine. Was senior brother searching for treasures just now?" Su Yu nodded and looked around. He sent a voice transmission to the 2 of them. "Heavenly Blood Lingji. Although it can't meet Lord's requirements and isn't of the bearing level, but, if we give it to the blood fire demons, perhaps we can exchange it for a bearing." When these words were said, Dao Cheng and Pan Hu were somewhat delighted. "Really?" Su Yu remained calm. Seeing that not many people were paying attention, he quickly stuffed a storage ring into Dao Cheng's hand. He transmitted his voice, "Your Highness, I saw quite a few people just now. Someone is staring at me. I'll hand the item over to Your Highness for safekeeping. You must bring it out and exchange it for a bearing item for Your Highness." Dao Cheng swept his gaze across the storage ring and was shocked. What an ancient heavenly blood Lingji. This item could really be exchanged for a bearing item. He could not help but look at Ling Heng. His tone was somewhat grateful as he transmitted his voice, "Senior brother Ling Heng, thank you very much. I can't thank you enough for your great kindness. There are too many people watching right now. After we leave, our Dao royal territory will definitely not mistreat senior brother." Of course. Su Yu wore a smile. He had used some of the saint word, which gave people the feeling that he was very trustworthy. At this moment, no one paid much attention to him. Instead, they found out that Ling Heng had obtained a huge heaven blood Ganoderma, which made many people envious. No one on the human side paid much attention to him either. Only Huang Jiu was a little suspicious. "Strange, is this guy, the one I met when I first appeared? Wasn't he dead?" Su Yu. Alright, she wasn't sure either. Yu had killed too quickly back then, so she didn't have the time to take a closer look. But now that someone had suddenly appeared, she couldn't help but think of Yu. Was this guy staring at the Celestials' trap this time? Impersonating the Celestial and infiltrating the Celestials' team, and not being afraid of the Celestials' invincible discovering you? His courage was truly extraordinary. Huang Jiu was not sure, but at this moment, someone was sure. No, Ball was sure. So fragrant. Little hairy Ball twitched its nose. At this moment, it suddenly felt that the fragrance was even more fragrant than before. Even from so far away, it could smell the fragrance. It really wanted to lick the fragrance in its mouth. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 2572, Chapter 2572, Chapter 552, Worrying One. Chapter 2572, Chapter 552, Worrying One. So many people. At this moment, Yu, who had mixed in with the immortals, sighed in his heart. There were actually so many people. They were all living well. They were scattered and there were even people gathering in this direction. There were close to 1,500 people. There were at least 200 or 300 people on the 7th floor. If he calculated it this way, there were at least 1,800 people left. They were really living well. After killing for several days, Yu felt that he had almost killed all of them. Surprisingly, there were still half of them alive. It was almost the 5th day. As expected, the 10,000 clans are like leeks. They cannot be cut off completely. They have cut off more and more of them. Even now, there are still quite a number of them. Yu sighed in his heart. There was still quite a lot of sun and moon here. If it was not for the fact that he wanted to blend in with the team and blend into the 7th floor, he could still kill all of them with his young aperture opened. The strongest one seemed to be Yubo. He was not even at the 9th level of the sun and moon. Looking over at the human race, there were quite a few familiar faces. Old Lu was indeed there. It was unknown if he had verified his bloodline with Huang Jiu. If Huang Jiu wasn't a member of the Lu family, he could just kill him. This person might be the only one who knew of my identity. Just as Yu was thinking about this, his heart stirred slightly. The Calamity Divine script twitched slightly. In the void, there seemed to be an invisible line that pierced through the void and seeped into the sea of will. Of course, it was blocking the surface of the tombstone. What's going on? Yu was a little surprised. What was this? The tombstone trembled slightly at this moment and blocked that thing outside. It was precisely because of this that Yu felt that this was somewhat similar to the probing power of the heaven hunting roll from before. However, it wasn't that powerful. He felt that this force that penetrated through the void wasn't too strong. Instead, it was a little weak. Yu carefully inspected it, and he was startled. This, was someone investigating him? This method, was very special. He didn't dare to be negligent. The quiet, divine text instantly appeared and transmitted the meaning of safe. The holy, divine text floated and transmitted the meaning of trustworthy. I, Yu, am safe and reliable little Lang Jun. Who is investigating me? Thinking carefully, Yu's heart moved slightly. Investigating. Dao Cheng. It can't be. Your grandfather, I, even gave you a treasure like the blood Lingji, and you're still investigating me? However, he knew that among the immortals, the Dao King lineage was the best at these methods. It was said to be divination, but in reality, it was to investigate the enemy's background and see if he could pry into anything. Yu didn't look at Dao Cheng. No matter who it was, whether it was the enemy or his own people, they all gave one a feeling. Safe, reliable, and reliable. If the enemy had probed, then it was his own people. If his own people had probed, then he would doubt life. At this moment, the tombstone firmly protected Su Yu's sea of consciousness, not allowing any thoughts to leak out. Only the two divine inscriptions, under Su Yu's instructions, transmitted such a weak message. It was very weak. However, that force that pierced through the void should be able to be felt. As expected, when the two divine inscriptions transmitted such a message, Dao Cheng's hands behind his back were constantly revolving around the divine inscriptions in his hands, emitting a faint light. Beside him, even Pan who didn't discover anything. This was because Dao Cheng had always liked playing with one of his divine inscriptions in his hands. He had always been like this, so he didn't attract any attention. Dao Cheng was indeed suspicious. This was because Ling Heng's arrival was too coincidental. Just as everyone was about to go up to the 7th level, he arrived. So what if he came? He was looking for a treasure, and quite a number of people actually saw it. Ling Heng was at the 3rd level of the sun and moon, how could he be so careless? Therefore, even though Su Yu had given him the treasure, he was still a little worried. He could not say what he was worried about. In fact, there was a thought in his mind. Ling Heng was very trustworthy, but there was a vague feeling of awkwardness. Therefore, at this moment, he was indeed investigating. He was doing a divination. He was so close to Ling Heng that he wanted to do a divination. While he was calculating, he looked at Su Yu. As for Su Yu, he had been sending that kind of message. After a while, he suddenly frowned and looked around. There was a slight fluctuation in his aura. Ling Heng, what's wrong? Pan Hu was a little surprised when he saw his movement. Su Yu frowned and looked around. He said to Dao Cheng through voice transmission, be careful. I don't know if someone is watching me. Maybe someone saw me snatching the treasure just now. After entering the 7th level, it's best for everyone to separate from me. Dao Cheng remained calm. He divined a few times, which meant that he was safe and trustworthy. At this moment, he took back the divine script and said through voice transmission, Senior brother, don't worry. Marshal Uncle Tai he is on the 7th level. Once he goes up, he will naturally be safe. Your Highness is too careless. Su Yu lectured, Your Highness, the 7th level is an invincible world. Marshal Uncle Tai he is only at the 9th level of the Sun-Moon realm. In our eyes, he is strong, but he doesn't have any advantage here. Your Highness, don't be careless and underestimate your enemy. Some mistakes can be made once, but not twice. Su Yu looked at Dao Cheng with a look of anticipation, I hope your Highness will remember this. This way, even if I really can't get out, I will still have the face to see Master. Dao Cheng's expression instantly changed. He transmitted his voice, Senior brother, you're too kind. I will be careful and won't make the same mistake again. Su Yu nodded. Beside him, Pan Hu also smiled and said, Ling Heng, don't say too much. Your Highness knows what's going on. Don't keep bringing this up. I know. Su Yu sighed and nodded, it's just that I don't want your Highness. Our Dao royal territory feels like someone is targeting us this time. To be honest, I even suspect that there's someone targeting us internally. After all, Your Excellency's strength has improved very quickly over the past few years, and your Dao domain has expanded. This time, however, 2 of your 3 bodies have been crushed by that old turtle. I'm afraid that there's someone who doesn't want us to return alive and bring you a vessel. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 2573, Chapter 2573, Chapter 552, Not at Ease 2. Chapter 2573, Chapter 552, Not at Ease 2. Dao Cheng was solemn as he nodded slightly. Su Yu transmitted his voice again, Your Highness, even if it's Xian Wuji, Your Highness should be more vigilant. Lord Xian Wang and U.S. may not really be on the same page. Dao Cheng nodded once again. The 3 of them did not speak anymore. At this moment, the three of them felt as though they were the only ones in the world. At this moment, a group of geniuses discussed for a while. Soon, Zhan Wushuang shouted, God, Devil, Immortal, Human, and Dragon clans, each send a mid-stage sun-moon cultivator to open the passage and maintain the operation of the passage. The small clans and the ancient clans quickly enter the 7th level. The other 5 clans will take turns to enter after they leave. At this moment, these people had reached an agreement. They did not delay any longer. On the immortal side, under Yubo's arrangement, a 5th stage sun-moon cultivator walked out. As for Su Yu's side, Pan Hu was quite powerful, so he didn't bother him with the 7th stage sun-moon cultivator. Pan Hu's goal was to protect Dao completion. Su Yu wasn't even at the 4th stage, so no one came to look for them. The 5 experts quickly made their moves. With a low shout, they opened the passage in the sky. A huge vortex appeared. Without the power of the mid-stage sun-moon realm, you wouldn't be able to open this vortex. Quick, go to the 7th floor. Someone shouted. However, at this moment, someone said, who can leave a drop of blood essence? If you enter first, you can leave earlier. I'm afraid that something will happen to the upper level. Don't forget that the undead tunnel is on the 7th floor. Be careful, you won't be able to return. At this moment, an expert from a small clan stood out and said through gritted teeth, I'll leave a drop of blood essence, but I want to leave it with Lord Modwa for safekeeping. Once Lord has gone up, pass it to me. Once a person died, there would be some unusual movements in the blood essence. However, this person was also worried about others. After thinking about it, he decided to leave it to Modwa. After all, the other party was a peerless genius. If he really wanted to kill him, it wouldn't be so troublesome. Modwa's purple hair danced in the wind. Hearing this, he turned his head to take a look and nodded slightly. Thank you for your trouble, sir. That person condensed a drop of blood essence and tossed it toward Modwa. Soon, he soared into the sky and flew toward the vortex. On the other side, Modwa put away his blood essence with a calm expression. After waiting for that person to fly up for a while, he said, he's fine for now. He's still alive. Alright, everyone, hurry up. At this moment, the experts from the ancient race and the minor races soared into the air and flew towards the vortex. At the entrance of the passageway on the 7th level. At this moment, numerous unrivaled experts were floating near the passageway. When the first expert flew up, an immortal king calmly spoke, Are you alone or are you all preparing to come up? There was a message from the outside world. If the people below received it, they would definitely have some means to save themselves. The expert from the small clan hurriedly said, Reporting to my lord, all the races have gathered below. How many lives are left? Around 1,500. The 4 sides were very quiet. Invincible side. Around 1,500. How many people were on the 7th floor? Less than 300. In other words, half of them had died. This was a huge loss. At this moment, everyone's expressions were solemn. The losses were too great. On the human side, the 4 unrivaled experts also had solemn expressions. So many had died. Soon, more and more experts from the small clans and the ancient race flew over. They did not dare to run around and just stayed where they were. The small clans that did not have any unrivaled experts were all trembling in fear, afraid that they would be killed just like that. As for the experts from the various clans, the more they looked, the more helpless they felt. There were actually so many people from the small clans and the ancient race. There were almost 300 of them. Didn't that mean that only a little over 1,000 of the powerful clans survived? The ones who suffered the greatest losses were the experts from the powerful clans. This time, Qin Zhen could not hold it in any longer. He transmitted his voice. How are the losses of our human race? He reached out his hand and grabbed at an expert from a small clan. The other invincible experts glanced at him but did not pay much attention to him. At this moment, these experts from the small clans also knew that they could only rely on the powerful clans. Even when Qin Jin grabbed the large bird did not make a single sound, it even took the initiative to fly over. Without waiting for Qin Jin to speak, he quickly sent a voice transmission, "My lords of the human race did not suffer a great loss. Currently, there are close to 300 human experts alive below. They are almost the same as the immortals." Qin Jin was a little surprised. So many humans had survived. Yes, a lot. Because nearly 700 immortals had entered, and the human race had 200 fewer people than them. In the end, the human race still had so many survivors. What about the gods and devils? There are more than 200 who survived. There are only 500 from the two races. So few. Qin Jin felt even weirder. He looked at the gods and devils on the other side. Sure enough, some of the gods and devils were also asking questions. When they received the news, their expressions turned ugly. At this moment, Xia Longwu quickly said, "Be careful. There are so many humans who survived. Be careful of being targeted." The unrivaled ones quickly turned serious. This was true. On the other side, a godly king said coldly, "The humans are lucky. Could it be that the invasion of He too is related to the humans?" That's true. After all, he too is a human who experienced the first tidal change. He might still remember the humans. On the human side, Zhu Tianfang laughed, "There's no need to say this. It's meaningless, isn't it? If the dead souls still knew which race they belonged to and which race they helped, then now that the dead souls realm has been opened, I think that the human race should have more undefeatable beings in the ancient times than any other race. I'll just open the dead souls realm then." But, do you really think that the dead souls would care about what race they were when they were alive? During the first tidal change of He too, he led the dead souls out of the realm to conquer the heavens. Later on, he too was unable to control the dead souls. It's not like the dead souls have never killed the human race, is it?